Arrogant, throwing fits, ripping shit, tearing it, imperative. Then I'm killing this mic no matter where I live. These derelict rappers acting the fool, this embarrassing is flagrant. That's the nature of this entertainment, and we can't even change it. Guilty before arraignment, now the system tainted. But when we speak, they all laugh at us. And y'all wonder why I'm lacking trust. Try to fight a giant with attorneys that can back them up. That's church versus science, both sides start acting up. I'm late on my assignment, hopping up a mile high, climbing, obviously never silent. New alignment, I'm defined, cannot describe it. Used to describe it as a young graffiti artist. Before the beard, I always got carded. At every bar, even though my bar has been the hardest. The scars on my face said I ain't always been the smartest, but I'll show you where my heart is. I said I'll show you where my heart is. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeves, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where my...
The type of guy that would ride with the breeze. I'm higher than most people, I'm cold and icicle freeze. I'm liking to Mike Tyson, I'm a bison, a beast. I'm high like Jamaica, like right by the beach. My pops is from a spot where they're fighting for peace. 8 years old, out there watching people fight in the streets. All these sirens only make the violence increase. Yeah, we're still not loving police. It's that bright young American, nice, dumb, arrogant. Tight on a mic, but he might need a therapist. Heart full of kerosene, head full of fairy tales. Said that you're my homie, you don't know me, but I know you very well. Roll back on some West Coast shit. This whole track is wetter than your dress code kiss. About to hit the track, running on some retro fit. I guess so lit, I guess so bitch, now let's go.
I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeves, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody...
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. That means it's us, not tacos. Welcome to yet another episode of Sports, Nonsense, and Whiskey. Hanging with my good guy, Pinky. Cheers. How you doing?
But you can also enjoy some tacos with some whiskey if you wanted to.
I mean, by all means, we like tacos. There's nothing against tacos. I'm just saying that, you know, if you had to choose, it should be us. I'm just, you know, helping the people lean in the right direction.
People need a snack while they listen to us for 2 hours. So, you know,
just pull a taco out of their pocket.
How's it going, Mr. 40-year-old?
Yeah, good. Don't feel any different. Still feel like I'm a kid who's got a bunch of adult responsibilities I'm supposed to take care of.
Yeah, I think my wife was reminiscing again, like, wow, you're in your 40s and you still act like a teenage boy.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, don't feel like I'm not responsible.
I'm here to keep you young. That's what I keep trying to tell her. Here to keep you young.
I mean, as long as I'm handling the responsibilities, I guess it really doesn't matter how I act, right?
Right? I mean, ish. Man, it's good.
See what happens, I guess.
Hopefully you had a good birthday weekend.
I did. Thank you. Thank you for celebrating with me.
It was a good time, man. It's a good time. Drinking at the putt-putt course. Got a couple hole-in-ones one-handed. That was like the highlight. I felt like $1 million at that point.
Yeah, that was a new experience. Haven't done that before.
That's good.
Drink some putt-putt. Good time.
we love that place. So
I see why. Absolutely.
We are usually pretty competitive. We usually keep score. We have way too many people to do that, but you know that's how we usually roll. Oh, Cody.
Yeah, quite a bit. Cody, what up, buddy? Yeah, there was. I mean, we were like 20-ish deep, taking up like 4 holes at a time. Like it was an experience. It was a fun one, but it was an experience for sure.
It might be because I had a shitty day today, but this whiskey tastes amazing.
What do you got?
I just got my 4 Roses.
Yeah. Well, you say that like that's just like meh. No, 4 Roses is delicious.
I know, but like it just tastes like exceptionally well tonight for some reason.
I like that.
I've got some bottles from South Dakota. I'm taking to a fantasy football draft.
Yeah.
Because I was the Sacco, and that's the punishment. Normally those don't get finished off, so I'm excited for once they're done. Then I can drink those on the Tuesday nights to really get a good feeling. I was a little tipsy when they sold them to me, so I'm not exactly sure if they're actually good or not. We'll see.
Right. The taste buds had kind of left, and you went with your gut.
Right.
That's what you're telling me.
I was just like, this tastes fine. I don't know. Let's see. I only had one sports thing before we talk football.
Well, there's a couple, so let's hear what you got.
An easy one. So I got to watch. I watched SummerSlam on replay since I didn't get to watch it live. I was out hanging out with some family that was in from out of town. Entertaining. I tell you, Logan Paul opened up. I'm always entertained by a Logan Paul match, whether you like him or not, whether you like his brother. They can be kind of jerks, but that dude can legitimately wrestle. He does all types of high flying things off the top ropes, and that guy's got moves, man. And I respect his wrestling game. He
will high fly. I like, surprisingly, for somebody who was just trying to do like a guest spot, and honestly, Bad Bunny's kind of legit too.
Yeah. Give Bad Bunny respect. That
like both of them are like, all right, you could, like, if you really wanted to, you could do this.
So I wonder if he's going to put wrestling on hold for a moment since he just signed a boxing match.
He has to.
With Dennis.
He can't afford to try and get hurt at a WWE event when that boxing match is going to pay him like 50 times.
Right.
Probably what one appearance at WWE does. So
I guess he's going to be on the Fury Nagano fight. He's going to be on that card.
Right.
So
no.
Yeah.
It's that one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They were saying he's going to be a co-main event. There's no way he co-main events with
I'm going to look it up.
I thought they were talking about the little brother that Jake just fought. I thought they were talking about Tommy Fury. Am I wrong?
Oh, I guess I'm wrong.
It's Tommy Fury, right?
I think it is Tommy Fury.
Yeah. Which would make sense because Logan boxed Mayweather. So he's at least got more respect than Jake as far as like opponents go.
So, okay, yeah, Logan's fighting Dylan Dennis. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not as excited about that now.
No.
But it did seem interesting.
But keep in mind, like, I'm surprised he took as much time away from boxing as he did after he fought Mayweather. Because that could have been a nice little leaping board for him where people could have been like, all right, like, yeah, you lost to Mayweather, obviously. Like, you're nowhere close to his skill level. But had you kept going, he would have been fighting bigger dudes than Tommy Fury by now. You know what I mean? Like legit boxing matches to make some money on.
Yeah, I don't know what his goals are. But
so it's odd that he took that much time away from boxing to go to WWE. So, these dudes are all about capitalizing on their dollars. So it makes you wonder what WWE gave him, knowing what kind of eyes he would bring in for them.
I am so rest of SummerSlam was pretty entertaining. There's some good stuff in there. I actually think the women triple threat championship match was fun. There was some good stuff in there. Ronda Rousey just needs to leave. I think her time in the shine is done.
I think she's still under contract, so they were trying to bring her back. But they decided to let what's-her-face beat her, which there's no way that would actually happen. Like, let's be honest.
Right.
Like, cool, you let this other girl act like she was a badder woman than Ronda Rousey. That's like them making The Undertaker take an L at SummerSlam.
I was sitting there just watching it with the wife.
WrestleMania.
I was cooking breakfast, and I literally came in to finish cooking something real quick, and then the match was already over. Like, it was super quick, and I was just like, oh, well, that's pretty shitty.
Like, what's the point of even having those matches, Like,
right. I did enjoy. I don't enjoy a lot. Well, again, I will say some of the Roman Reigns matches I do enjoy, and then the ending just like ruins the match. Like, it's a fantastic match, and then the ending just is like, wait, we just waited 30 minutes for this? That's how I kind of felt on this one. I don't know if you saw it or what happened, but it's just another thing of just he never wins a match just on his own. Period.
No, absolutely not.
And to me, like I miss those matches where it's just two dudes going all at it. Again, it's great pageantry.
Well, if you want to have like him win one like that, like maybe once, twice, like okay, cool. But every single match,
right? So like I have more respect for Gunther right now than I do Roman Reigns, because Gunther's matches are fun, entertaining, and then he pulls out the win. But it's not with somebody helping him. It's always just him getting the win. So I'm pretty tired of the Bloodline storyline. Looks like they're going to continue it for a while longer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but it's time to go. It's time to go. That was all I had. I just disgusted at how they handle, like, whoever handles creative is like, we need some new blood here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There are some stale storylines, to say the least.
Oh, one more thing.
Okay.
You know, I like to throw my recommendations, my pinky approved out.
Absolutely.
Hannah and I did binge watch Twisted Metal on Peacock.
I was curious. Okay.
Fucking awesome.
Really?
So awesome.
I thought it would be terrible. It's actually good.
I laughed so hard. So the character Sweet Tooth, gigantic guy wearing a clown mask, and he's crazy. And it's Will Arnett doing the voice. Oh, he is so good. He is so good. So
all right.
Cody, we could not stop watching it.
I was eventually going to watch it because of the nostalgia factor, because that was literally the first game I ever played after my parents bought us a PS1 back in the day. They rented a couple games for us, not knowing what they thought it was, just like some car racing game.
Right.
Like, so when they came in and saw us doing like Demolition Derby and things were a little bit on the more adult end, it was funny.
Anthony Mackie is good in that. Stephanie Beatrice is good in it.
Facts, Cody. Me too.
Yeah, I played it too. I wasn't good, but I played it.
Yeah, I just couldn't see how they're going to turn it into a show. But if it's pinky approved, guys, it is worth checking out.
Like, my wife does not like gore, but it was funny enough that she was interested, because it's pretty gory. They do a lot of violence.
Is it on the same level as Peacemaker?
Yeah.
So is she willing to watch Peacemaker now?
You know, I don't think she watched some of Peacemaker. She was in the room.
It's funny. Like,
but
Peacemaker was funny.
Absolutely. She really enjoyed this. And I don't know if that's because we watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's one of our favorite shows. So Stephanie Beatrice plays in the show as Rosa Diaz. Okay. So I think that's what got her, like, at least piqued her interest.
Put in the door, something she already enjoyed.
She was like, oh, this is interesting. And I would say, like, in my opinion, I hope you guys watch it. I hope you guys like it. I just like the characters in the show make you, like, you're rooting for them. And you're hoping things go well. And even Sweet Tooth, you're like, well, that dude's kind of crazy, but, you know, I hope he gets through. It was awesome. It was awesome. So
that's hilarious. That is hilarious.
Finished in a day and a half. It's 10 episodes.
Okay. I'll have to see what happens. All right, you good? Anything else you're thinking of? So I think we got to shout out the Women's World Cup team.
We don't have to.
Well, I'm going to shout them out for like an epic failure. I don't care what anybody says. Getting knocked out in the first round of the knockouts is far from expectation. The fact that you barely got through group stage was a scary thought. They played, and look, I'm not saying they didn't put their heart and soul into it. Sometimes you just don't, things don't work, right? Like, you can go out there and try your best, but you're off. Things don't feel right. Something else might be going on in the locker room and you actually aren't giving it your best because you got other worries to deal with. So regardless of what it was, the fact of the matter is they played what looked like uninspired, sloppy, no team aspect of true.
Well, some of their previous team
chemistry
captains retired, right?
Yeah, but still, like the amount of talent on that team, like the fact that they're so talented is why they still made it to the knockout stage. Like they shouldn't have made it out of group the way they were playing, to be perfectly honest. Those 2 ties they had could have very easily been 2 losses. And they were pretty much outplayed in both of those games. But because they have so much talent, they were able to, get what they needed to make sure that they went through. So it was ugly. It was ugly. Now, some people are blaming the coach and saying the tactics were never adjusted when they needed to be. Some people did not like his lineups. Whatever it was from the coach, because there's definitely some coaching issues. That's obvious. I don't see him being around for another what is the word I'm looking for? Session. It's not session though, but people in soccer know what they're screaming it at me right now and laughing.
Don't worry, none of those dudes are watching. It's fine.
Well, fair. So there's that, and then I think there's something going on in the locker room. To be honest with you, I think there was something going on where there was no team chemistry, because that's what showed on the field. And between the two, that combination is not usually going to have good results. So they're out. No 3-peat.
I had a good joke, but it's probably in poor taste, so I'll just move on.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's just leave it at that. It's funny though, because we're acting like they've been shit for like years, right? Like they didn't just win the last 2 World Cups.
Right.
We're talking about it like they're a terrible team that should have like finally broken over the hump, and blew their chance again. Like that's not the case. So it's like it's almost unfair criticism to an extent. But like half the team, it felt like was making their first cap, which is appearance, for the national team in the World Cup, and they're like 25 or younger. So they're all going to be together come the next round, and see what they look like. But yeah, there were some key pieces that have moved on over the last 2 World Cups, and you really just kind of had a couple vets, one that everybody continues to like be glad that she lost, which is kind of mind blowing to me. You might not agree with her politics, but that doesn't mean you should be like rooting openly against America. That seems counterproductive to the whole idea. But that's just me, I guess. So, they lost, and it was really bad. It was a failure, no matter how you look at it. That's how I see it, anyways.
Yeah, I have no comment. They sucked. They lost me money, so fuck them.
Yeah. All right.
I'm a simple man, cool. Caleb. I'm a simple man.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we let him go another segment, or since he apparently didn't ever give back his key, and he's just in at all points in time.
He's just part of the show, bro. We like him. We love him. You can invite him in. It's cool.
All right.
He's not wearing red this time, so we're good.
Just remember this man. Every time you say that, you end up getting burned. I just want to remind you, it's
how I
Cameron,
live.
How's it going, buddy?
Hey, Caleb. How you doing? Oh, how you doing, Ugly?
Man, right off the bat, coming in strong.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's nothing quite like Pinky hates America. So
Pinky doesn't hate America. Pinky hates it when women decide to lose him money because they don't know how to play soccer. That's what I hate.
He hates America. You heard it here, folks. Pinky hates America.
Well, I did spend 7 years in Europe, so I guess that could play a part.
But how you doing, Jens?
Don't go down this road any further.
We're changing subjects now. we're
Just beep, beep, beep. We're not that kind of show, I swear.
yeah. But you guys doing good?
How you doing, buddy?
I love you, Ray.
Ray's got my back.
I love
You have any topics that have interested you over the last week or so that are not football related? Because we have plenty of that to discuss already.
No, just just the usual. It was a little bit embarrassing, for sure. That everything that happened, with the soccer team and everything like that. It was just embarrassing. And yes, Ray, I will stop. For you, I will stop.
Solid. Well, so I don't have anything else. That was pretty much it. I mean,
Was it
there's
just soccer?
Couple little. Well, I felt like we had to at least discuss it. Kind of a big event that we didn't really talk about that much because it was uninspiring, I guess is the word I'll use. So it's over. There was one other thing. Did you see Bryson DeChambeau shot a 58? 50 freaking 8. Like, how?
Is that
That's
good?
absurd. Okay,
That's more than
so
absurd.
par is 72, Pinky. So if you hear a dude go, 10, 15 under par for an entire tournament, right? So a 14 under is a 58 if the par is 72, right? 14 under is an insanely good score for an entire tournament. 4 days of golf. This man did it in one round. Went 14 under. Like, it's absurd.
So he won that tournament then, right?
He did end up winning. That helps when you go 14 under on one day.
I mean, for perspective, it's almost like if you go to like a mini golf course and you actually score that type of score, you're basically like 14 out of 18 holes is basically you're winning 14 of the 18 holes. Like, that's absurd, even for mini golf. Like, and so it's just absolutely absurd. And I mean, like, the only people that can actually do that are people that are playing, PGA 2K, 23 or something like that on a regular basis on easy. But the fact that like something like that happened with scoring a 58 is pretty ridiculous.
And it's not a course that's known for giving up low scores per se. That's the crazy part. It's not there are certain tournaments where you expect to see guys go 20, 25 under for the entire tournament, so they're shooting, mid to low 60s, which is still insane. And 58's been done before. It's not like it's a record. 57 would be the record, actually. But there's only a handful of dudes who have shot 58. It's not like it's some kind of crazy long list. There's more hole-in-ones than there are 58s.
And I gotta say that's hats off to Bryson DeChambeau though, because he's a player that when you think of how long he can hit a golf ball and everything else, it was always about how can he finish a hole, which in essence was his short game. And I think that kudos to him, because when you think about everything that he was putting together for a round of golf, that's the epitome of everything that you want as far as for a Bryson DeChambeau round. And I think that in a nutshell, I think is what made DeChambeau such a polarizing golfer to a certain extent, because, you're seeing these guys, and granted you're seeing more and more in terms of some players, hitting the daylights out of the golf ball and more, being, on a much regular basis, consistent with it versus DeChambeau, who's all over the place. He's like me sometimes in my golf game, like, and especially with his driver, he's just all over the place, like inconsistent as all get out. But like, when you see him on his game, it's breathtaking. And I think that's what made it so appealing with the rivalry between he and Brooks Koepka, because Koepka was a guy that was like Mr. Consistent, and DeChambeau was a guy that, was almost not to quote the line from Miracle, but it's when Herb Brooks, said it to his assistant coach when he was asking about, adding in Jimmy Craig. Like, are you sure you want to add Jimmy Craig? And he basically said, well, have you seen him when his game's on? Like, that's the thing. It's like when DeChambeau's game is on, there are very few that can actually stop that, especially obviously when you shoot a 58. But there are a few
absolutely. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, Cam, but Pinky, this guy, he came into golf doing the old Payne Stewart style, kind of like knickers and the bowler hat kind of thing, and so he already came in looking different, and then he came in thinking differently than pretty much anybody else on the tour. He found this book. It's called the Golf Hitting Machine. I just pulled it up. Yeah, the Golfing Machine, and it's geometric golf. And what it does is all his clubs are the same length. The only thing that changes is the degree in which the club face sits. And then there's a very specific swing that you're taking with every single club the exact same way. And you don't really alter that depending on your shot. You're just changing trajectory and other things with your stance. It gets very technical. It's really wild. But he used that for a very long time. And then to that, he went and put on it was something like 60 pounds of pure muscle. This dude looked like he should have been tested every week. That's how big he got. And he started hitting the ball 375 yards along with this other stuff, and he finally broke through. Won a major, and then kind of went cold for about a year, and then live rumors started, and he got into a spat with Brooks Koepka, and he was already kind of rubbing people the wrong way with all his other stuff that he did on the course, that he kind of got blackballed to an extent, it felt like, the way he was talking. And then Liv came calling, and he went and joined Liv. So where those relationships and stuff are at, how the PGA guys look at him outside of just Liv, I don't know. But I've always liked him because he took this completely different approach by this guy who wrote this crazy book that said you could golf this way and he'd be more consistent and things of that nature. And he ran with it, went rocket science on stuff. So kind of cool story. If you're not familiar with it, it is worth kind of reading up on. I wish ESPN still had a magazine because they used to do a lot of really cool stories like that I feel like Sports Illustrated doesn't do. Maybe that's just me, but I felt like there were more of that stuff from ESPN magazine than there was Sports Illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's that. But other than that, I'm good.
Ooh, excuse me, fellas. Jeez.
Maybe okay. Drink some water, Pinky.
I only got whiskey and.
We're belching on the pod now?
Not on purpose, Cam. Not on purpose.
What's next? We're going to fart on the pod?
Whoa, easy.
Jeez,
I'm just
this guy.
Because I won't allow that. Thankfully, I won't
That's
be able to.
That's where you draw the line, huh? That's where you.
Thankfully, I won't be able to smell it.
Well, Pinky, you know what it takes to get him moving along.
I do.
Now. Just
I do.
keep that in mind.
So, Cam, I'm being on my best behavior since Ray told me to stop. So I'm being on my best behavior now.
Oh, you're fine.
Nice.
All right. Well, Cam, I appreciate you jumping in. This is going to take I think you're a competent football fan, among other things. So I think you can
debatable
have a conversation. But
debatable.
We're just kind of doing some discussions about all the teams, AFC, NFC. Going to start with the NFC. It's going to have some quick hitters and some things about each team and kind of see where that takes us.
Yeah.
Going to start with probably at least like nobody knows what's going to happen division in the NFC. Anybody got a guess on that?
NFC South.
NFC South. That's right. Bingo, baby. Who knows? There's not a.
I think I know. I think it's pretty clear cut, actually.
I guess if you go with the team with the best quarterback, the Saints are going to win.
The Saints are the best team.
They have the most talent overall still on that roster. I don't know about the
defense consistently has been good for the last solid decade. Maybe not always great, but good, especially considering some of the offenses that they put out.
That coach is worrisome. Dennis Allen. I don't know if he's
the coaches. I'm not saying they're going to be like a threat for the championship, but they should easily win that division.
I don't want. It's going to sound reactionary because of what they've been able to do, but I don't want to count out Carolina though. I really don't.
That's number 2. Carolina's definitely number 2.
No, I'm not talking to you though right now, Pinky, or even Caleb. I said I would not rule out Carolina though, as far as like being a team that's going to challenge the Saints. I don't even think it's out of the question even for the Falcons either. I think the Falcons and the Panthers are in a really interesting situation because it all hinges on the quarterback, especially within that division. And with the Falcons, they were finally able to put all sorts of playmakers around their particular quarterback. And in this case, I'll start with the Panthers first. The Panthers, the way they organize their staff in both veteran leadership and in terms of the way that they organize it from top to bottom, and even adding a Jiro Evero to the mix with Frank Reich, and then to draft, Bryce Young and then for them to draft Bryce Young, I think was really smart for them. And, I think that it's one where I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. It's definitely, it's going to take a lot with Bryce Young for sure. But the one thing that they do have that can help carry them is a defense. And they have a defense at Carolina. And with pieces, especially with what they have there on the front seven with guys like Derek Brown and Brian Burns, etc. Jeremy Chin in the secondary.
Jeremy Chin's great.
I want to say it's Donta Jackson in the secondary corner.
Jackson.
They have pieces there.
Who went before?
So I would not put it past them to surprise some people and be in that conversation for the division even in year one.
I think they're going
to JC Horn. JC Horn.
Yeah. Thanks, Cody.
So then moving on to the Falcons, this is the case where if you were to make the case, here's a team that went out and spent money. Okay, Caleb McGarry was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to go elsewhere, and in a surprising move, decided to stay home. He stayed home with Atlanta,
right?
And I think a lot of it is because he saw what is potentially there in Atlanta, and with especially the offensive side of the ball. You drafted Bijan Robinson. You have Kyle Pitts. You have Drake London. The pieces are there on a playmaking level for you to get it done. And you added Jonnu Smith to the mix with familiarity with Arthur Smith now. So, I mean, like there's some chemistry possibility with Jonnu and Arthur again. Now, granted, we all know, I think that Jonnu's not necessarily the player that he thought or that we think he is at this point in his career. I just think that it still hinges 100%. I think it still hinges on Desmond Ridder. Can he take that team over the top? That's the question. And if he can be the guy that was, in terms of what we had seen, with Cincinnati under Luke Fickell, and be that true distributor of the football, which is exactly what Atlanta needs. You have the pieces there.
Well, I would argue.
So, I mean, it's certainly possible. I have the Saints winning, just FYI. It's just the one thing that is a cause for concern is just, are you going to see a quarterback in a new environment rise to the occasion in Derek Carr in his new environment? That's just the only question that I have. Now, the one thing that's going in his favor is he's with the coach that he's been with before, and Dennis Allen, and so it's just like that's enough for him probably to move the needle for a little bit. But I would not sleep on those teams like the Panthers and the Falcons by any means.
I just think, if you're putting money on it, the Saints are the team to put money on. I agree with the Panthers. Their defense is legit. We all love Evero. They have upgraded their O-line a little bit to help Rice out. Rookie quarterback, new coach. I think they'll be good. I don't know if they'll be like win the division good, but I think they could compete, like you said. For the Falcons, I tell you, man, I think that O-line, I think you could argue that O-line's in the top 3, if not the number 1 O-line in the league, based on what they have.
I wouldn't get carried away, but they're good. They're good. They're not bad pass blocking either, to be honest. So but getting to number 1, that's considering a couple of these other O-lines that are out there. That's a bit of a stretch.
I think you can make an argument.
Fair. Okay.
So I think the Falcons will be pretty good. I don't know if Ritter is going to be good enough to take them over the top. And I guess we don't really have to talk about the Bucs much. That seems like a 5-12 team ready to reboot, in my opinion.
Kyle Trask all the way, baby. They're going to the playoffs.
It will be Trask over Baker. And Trask is not as bad as people want to believe. He's not too shabby, and he did get a couple years under Brady, which can't hurt. So I don't know if the Bucs are going to be that bad. And the reason I say that is because when you have one of the best wide receiver duos in the entire NFL at any given time, there's been moments in either one of these guys' careers, in Godwin and Evans, where you could have said they were the best receiver in the league.
And I know
there were arguments for that. So
I know the Bucs had.
I'm not going to completely count out the Bucs because of the weapons that they do have. You still got Levante David,
Devin White.
I was drawing a blank on his first name. Devin White.
Their defensive line outside of Vita Vea is pretty weak.
No,
I was going to say there's Vita Vea, so there's still some guys.
I said
there.
outside of Vita Vea.
I know, but even that, there's still some guys there, dude.
They drafted Kalijah Cansey, so I mean, like, if you want to watch a prospect coming out, Kalijah Cansey.
You like Aiden Hutchinson last year? This guy's going to be just fine too, especially with Vita
Vea. Did you know that he compared favorably to Aaron Donald coming out?
Right, a lot of his like measurables are very similar.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, and he went to Pitt. Yeah, it's like Pitt went and tried to find another Donald specifically. So I wouldn't count the Bucs out. Here's what I would say. In all honesty, all of these teams, you can make an argument, are actually wildly similar. I think all their defenses are kind of equal. You can put one over the other if you want to, but I think there's an argument that either one of these 4 defenses could easily be the best defense in the division by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think offenses all have similar weapons. Again, the Bucs do have the best 2 receivers, but their quarterback is not as good as Derek Carr. Right. Overall weapons, given everything that there is right now, you might be able to make an argument that Carolina actually has the best weapons.
Or even Atlanta.
I was going to say or Atlanta, but
I would take Atlanta over Carolina.
Okay, and that's fine. But Mingo could be really good. Thielen's there. They brought in DJ Shark. Yeah. They've got Miles Sanders, who went healthy.
DJ Moore.
I'm just saying they have. Well, then you wouldn't have Bryce Young.
They could have got that trade done without trading DJ Moore.
I don't think the Bears would have had anything to do with that, dude. I think there's a very specific thing there that they wanted, and that's why they ended up with that trade. Regardless,
the Bears needed weapons. That's the thing. The Bears needed weapons, and also DJ Moore had been kind of on the outs a little bit with Carolina, and and in terms of wanting to be not
DJ Moore has top 5 league wide receiver potential.
He and Cortland Sutton are kind of the same in that. Yeah, it's the Cortland Sutton dilemma.
Quarterback play. Well, no, he hasn't been hurt like Sutton. He's just never had a quarterback.
But I'm talking talent-wise in terms of
I see. Okay, fair. If Sutton gets back to form, yes, that would be a valid argument, I would say as well.
Moving on.
But so, hang on.
Man, finish.
Talking weapons, you can put some over the others as well. But overall, I think the Saints have the most kind of baseline consistency in everything. I think Olave's a stud. I think Taysom Hill and Joe Johnson are solid tight ends. Derek Carr's the best quarterback in the division. And they have some decent running backs, even if Kamara's out. I know Kareem Hunt made a visit, ended up leaving without a contract. But you still got Williams. You still got Keandre Miller coming in as a rookie. So I think baseline, I think all these teams are very similar with that. But you look at where you're at, and I think New Orleans levels out on average the best, which is going to allow them to go through that division. Plus you get playing in the Superdome, which always seems to be a little bit of a boost as well.
real quick, Ray did ask this question. Do you mind if I bring it up? About
No, bring it. I was going to bring it up. We
Okay,
definitely need
good.
to
What?
address
What
that.
do we got?
so he says, why has there been a complete exodus out of the NFC when it comes to players? I think you guys can answer this as well. I think it's also about, it's probably the old adage of wanting to beat the best. And the thing is, the AFC has been so top heavy for quite some time. Like even when Brady and Manning were there. And I just think that they see that as an opportunity where, they want to beat the best. It is interesting though. And I think it is a very fair question to ask because with everything that it is right now, I mean, there's a fair argument. We'll talk about that division later, but I mean, like, there's a fair argument that the who's the best quarterback is actually a little bit more wide open, obviously, on the NFC than it is in the well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Like in terms of the AFC, it's sort of like a pick your flavor. But I think in the NFC, it's like it's definitely more open as far as like who the top quarterback is. I think if you were to ask me though, I would probably say Jalen Hurts, which is crazy that I would actually have a conversation saying that it's Jalen Hurts right now. But I think there, and it sounds crazy, but like there's an argument to be made for Dak Prescott to even be mentioned in this.
No, Cam, that there's not an argument. That's just
I'll take Kirk Cousins over Dak.
But I'm just saying because of the amount that you see now, this is a huge year for the Cowboys. We'll talk about that defense or that division later.
We'll get there.
Well, but I just think if we're looking at it as a whole, though, it just depends on the length of time and everything that you want to see with it.
My answer to Ray is
exodus of talent.
You
go ahead.
I don't think it's an exodus. I just think it's like somehow, some way, the AFC teams drafted quarterbacks, and then recently, Rodgers came over to the AFC, Russ came over to the AFC. We'll see how Russ pans out at all. You had Deshaun Watson, who did move from Houston to the Browns, so he's still in the AFC.
Yeah, they have.
So, like, it's just like a transition, which is, like, really strange if you really think about it. Like, Lamar, Trevor Lawrence, Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Like, you just start going down the list, and it's like, holy crap, they are all on AFC teams. Most of them drafted by AFC teams. And then you look at the NFC list of quarterbacks, and you're like, ooh, that's very underwhelming. So,
it's a natural turnover within the NFL. That there's no exodus. It's a natural. All the teams you just mentioned that have really great young QBs just happen to be in the AFC. Well, if you're drafting early and you get a really good young QB, what did you do to get that?
You sucked.
You sucked. This isn't a mass exodus. It's just that there were a lot of really bad teams in the AFC that didn't have their shit together and had to go those routes and finally got it right. Whereas in the NFC, what we're seeing is guys retiring, moving on, where they may not have always been really great. Some of them were just really good, but they're starting to get to that age where they're retiring or they're moving on or teams are looking to get somebody else in. And that's why it feels like there's this mass exodus, but it's not an exodus. There's still a ton of talent in the NFC. There's a reason that they haven't got blown out of the Super Bowl the last some odd years. If you look at the Eagles, insanely loaded. You could say that's the best roster in the entire league. You look at San Francisco, insanely loaded. You could say that's the best roster in the league. So it's not like it's Kansas City and Cincy and Buffalo and Jacksonville. You go down the list. But there's some really good teams on the NFC. Dallas's roster is actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
There's arguably a really good roster in Green Bay. They're very young and unproven still, but they put on some shows last year, even with an injured Aaron Rodgers throwing them the ball. That defense underperformed. So can they get back to where they're supposed to be? I'm just thinking, to me, it's a natural kind of leveling out of the process as it moves forward, which the NFL has purposely put in place with their salary cap and things of that nature that create parity. And there's ebbs and flows through it all.
I just think it is strange that if you really go down the list of quarterbacks, the majority of the top quarterbacks are in the AFC. It's a little strange.
Well, but I think
they had to suck.
But I think to Caleb's point though, I think what he really hit the nail on the head, and I think that's where I'm at on it. When he really now Exodus is the right terminology because they're leaving from the NFC to the AFC, right? But like at the end of the day, it's about the appeal, right? Like at the end of the day, it's about appeal. And even though it was something for like look at it from this vantage point with like Tom Brady and the reverse of this. When Tom Brady left the New England Patriots, he saw the appeal of what was Tampa Bay. Because like at that point in time, they had wide receivers, good young wide receivers, and where really they really didn't have many weaknesses except for running back, probably. And then they went out, and because Tom Brady went there, they went out and spent some of that money to bring some of that attraction. And because of the fact that Leonard Fournette was a part of the Jacksonville Jaguars, they were able to have that attraction and bring him back to Florida, have him be a part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But it's that word again. It's the word attraction. When you have that ability to bring players in and it does start and end with the quarterback position. When it starts and ends with that, you do have the lure of players in free agency that want to come play for you, which thus will result in an exodus of sorts from the NFC to the AFC. Case in point, the 2014 Denver Broncos free agency that happened, right? With potentially the conversation of Jared Allen versus DeMarcus Ware, both of them coming from the NFC. Jared Allen probably would have been a Denver Bronco, but instead DeMarcus Ware is the guy that ends up coming back here. But the reason why he came here was because of course, the phone call from Pat Bowlen and Peyton Manning, and others that he talked about in his Hall of Fame speech. So I just think that like at the end of the day, it's about what it is that's been attracting these players to those teams, and it starts and ends with the quarterback.
Absolutely.
So I got to ask you guys, because maybe I'm just lost and I am just completely drawing blanks on stuff, but I'm having a hard time thinking about this exodus of players that went from the NFC to the AFC recently. Because every team I'm thinking about was basically drafted with just loads of talent. There wasn't some kind of exodus where they left. Who am I forgetting? What am I not thinking of? Because the only one I can think of is Devontae Adams, and that was a trade. Because he didn't think Aaron Rodgers was going to be there anymore, and he didn't want to go through a rebuild and all the other reasons he listed. But that's the only guy I can think of that left, and it was trade. It wasn't like he signed somewhere.
But I mean, like you saw guys like Calvin Ridley. Now, granted, that was some other stuff.
Trade.
But
that
still,
was a trade.
But still, in order for that to happen, in order for something like that to happen, you have to have the conversation of with anything. Russell Wilson, like when you see the appeal, like Russell Wilson is a prime example. Aaron Rodgers obviously is a current example, but even though that they're trades, they are still being sent over. They're still being sent over to the AFC, even if it's trade or not. They're being sent over to the AFC. Devontae Adams, even though it's a trade, wanted to be with something to go to the Raiders to be with the quarterback that he was accustomed to.
Sure, but like A.J. Brown went from the Titans to the Eagles. It's going both ways.
Yeah, I don't know if exodus is the right word. I would say it like what you said, Cam, attraction. There's an attraction for players to want to come and play with some of the quarterbacks.
To good teams? Just good teams? Is that what we're...
Good teams slash quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just not seeing I mean, Kansas City is all drafted or they traded for Tony, right? Look at Buffalo. Traded for Diggs. Josh Allen. But then both of those situations turned out just fine for the other team because the Giants had to move on. It allowed them to bring in other guys like Waller, hopefully keep Barkley. They've spent the money on Jones, which is still confusing, but they've got a better O-line. They've got some solid defensive guys. So the Giants needed to spend the money on a guy that was injured, so be it. You look at Minnesota, well, they got rid of Diggs. They still had Thielen, and then they go ahead and draft J.J. Jefferson, the Jetta, and they bring in Addison this year. So it's not like just because they sent a guy, like there was an exodus of lack of talent, I guess, is where I'm really getting at in the end. Like the teams that traded those guys away, there was reasons that they did it for, and they replaced it with what appears to be talent. So that's why I'm saying I just think it's like a changing of the guard that happens every so often.
Well, but that's why I say that exodus may be the wrong word, but that's why I say that at the end of the day, it's about attraction. And it just so happens that like the attraction just is the massive appeal that is in the AFC because it's so quarterback heavy in the AFC.
I'll give you that. I still think you can make a very fair and easy argument that the two best rosters in the league are San Francisco and Philadelphia.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ray. Thanks a lot, buddy.
No, I got it. That was a great question, Ray, because I think it's a fair question to ask. 100%.
It is. No, it's a great question, and it obviously those are the kind of things we love because it makes us start spinning our wheels and going through the entire league. Which Pinky I think leads in good to the next division. Where do you want to go next, sir?
I mean,
keep the questions coming. By the way, we don't mind jumping in there.
So the next division, I think all these teams are super excited that Aaron Rodgers is gone because he ruled the North for a very.
Wait, we're going from AFC South to NFC North.
We went NFC South to NFC North.
NFC North. Okay, yeah.
I said we're talking NFC first.
You're right. That was foolish of me. I had AFC in my head out of nowhere. I apologize. That was dumb.
Caleb is directionally challenged. Don't mind him.
I agree with Caleb. The Packers have a good roster. I think Jordan Love's going to stink, in my opinion. I just don't think he's going to be very good.
I mean, we're on this thing again where I hate it because you guys love to just burn me until I just end up proving you wrong, but I have to take burns for a solid couple years. I saw some legit flashes in Jordan Love when he got on the field that I do believe, given a full season, while there might be some rough patches, overall, it's going to be a solid season.
I mean, he played against a shitty KC defense that didn't care enough to really
do
anything.
Don't care, man.
That's
not getting reps during the week. It's not getting reps during the week.
They didn't pull anything out of the bag in that game.
I saw some flashes where I think with the weapons that he has there, you could see a solid team this year. I like the run game. The offensive line is solid. They've got receiving weapons.
Underrated
that defense,
receiving.
Like I said, we'll see if they're underrated. I think they're weapons right now, but they could easily all flop this year, or they could all take another step forward. Yeah. And that includes the new tight end Musgrave. So there's question marks for sure, but I do believe it's talent. It's just all young and raw.
But that's why I was agreeing.
Fair. And that I was going to say that defense massively underperformed. Pinky, before last year started, we were pretty much in agreement that it was going to be a top 10 easy. And they were bottom third for sure.
And I just don't know if they're going to get any better, man. They've got the talent.
It's a fluke.
They've got the talent, but they've underperformed.
I think for me, I really think, because I'm not picking the Packers to win this division. I'm not. But I'm actually on the wait and see mode with the whole Packers thing. Because, like, that's the thing is, like, when you have an unknown like this, and it's the Bryce Young dilemma with Carolina, or even the Desmond Ridder stuff with Atlanta. It's the wait and see as far as, like, what they're going to do this year. So, sadly, it's a cop-out answer. I hate to use that. It's a cop-out answer to a certain extent. But, like, I hate to use that as an analogy, but, like, it's true. Like, I want to see what we have in Jordan Love this year, and obviously we're not even in preseason yet. So can you really base something off of this regular season, off of what you see in the preseason? I don't think you can. So you have to see what, you have in the regular season, the first few games before that prediction is going to be raining home. Because I do feel a lot more comfortable with these other teams right now than I do the Packers. That's not to say about, some of these other, weapons that are on this team, guys like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, and, who knows what will happen with Musgrave, but I mean, the offensive line, it's a good offensive line, but it also can be a little bit of a turnstile offensive line as well. because of the injuries and everything that they've sustained as well. So that's going to be a huge deal. But so I think if you're looking at this and, Cody mentioned it and I'm all in agreement, if there's a window for not just this team to win the division, but the other team as well, it's the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. If there is a window right now with Aaron Rodgers leaving, it is the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. I think the Minnesota Vikings are the appeal for a lot of people, and rightfully so. But I think that because, again, it goes back to the argument. I mean, Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in that division right now. Not to say that that's going to be the end of the discussion, because you have guys like Justin Fields that emerged late in the season last year, right? But it's just like, so I think that if you look at it, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that guys like
No, Jack, it's not. Sorry, bud. It's not an AFC West channel. You already have that show.
I don't think it's out of the realm
show.
of possibility, though, that the Detroit Lions win this division, and it's because of everything that they built.
I think that's the sexy pick for everybody, and I wouldn't be mad if it happened.
That Lions bandwagon is full.
It is. They're a good team, and they did improve in the areas they needed to. But I to kind of that's hilarious.
Sweet dreams, Shaq. Sweet dreams, buddy.
I feel like, to quote Pinky to an extent, the Lions are going to lion. And that's just kind of the general feel I get right now. Now, that doesn't mean they'll miss the playoffs, but for some reason, I have this weird feeling that Minnesota will repeat. And then the dark horse would be Green Bay, who I think could make a dark horse playoff run as well. I don't trust Chicago's coaching staff. Based on what I saw last year, I feel like there were a lot of things they could have done that would have been a lot more productive. And they chose against doing those things for some reason. They got a defensive head coach, and I don't feel like that defense plays up to its full capabilities, and they just keep adding to it. So I think Chicago's still a little ways off, which if anybody listens to the show knows, I am very high on Justin Fields. So that pains me to say a little bit, but I think they're still at least a year off. So, Pinky and I always do our schedules. We'll do that here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll give you our true rundown of where we believe they're going to fall. But I just don't know if the Lions have just enough yet to win the division.
Here's my take on the Lions, and this is what gives me hope, or at least why I'm on the bandwagon, I should say. Their offense was one of the best offenses in the league for the first half of the season.
Sure was.
Their defense was one of the worst in that first half of the season. That second half of the season, that defense started to play up with the offense.
Mm-hmm.
They started putting up some games.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm banking on, is that defense will continue to play better to help out with an offense that's already really good.
They should. They added talent to it. So there's no reason why they shouldn't continue to improve in that regard. However, I think the thing that I still kind of come back to with Detroit is when their offense started kind of sputtering to an extent that second half of the season, one of the guys that helped kind of move them forward was Jamal Williams. And little things like losing him, and he's not only was he huge on the field last year, but he was the locker room.
Right.
By all accounts, from Hard Knocks and everybody else that talked about it the whole season, that dude was the locker room. So, and I think Jared Goff is a good leader. Maybe not the most talented guy in the world, but he played lights out last year. And I do believe he's a good leader. I think they've got other guys with really the right mindset and attitude to go with Coach Campbell, who is my favorite coach in the league, to where there's no reason they shouldn't win the division. But I think the little things like losing to Jamal Williams and stuff, to me almost feels like they're a year away from really taking over.
I know you got the Vikings winning. My take on the Vikings, they won like 11.
I'm just saying, to me, it's like it's Dang it! What's the phrase I'm looking for? It's like a horse race where you kind of it's anybody's pick. Some people are going out saying Lions are kind of the clear favorite this year. That's kind of the sexy pick right now. Is they're going to kind of run away with the division, and I think them and Minnesota are kind of neck and neck. Is what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah. I can see the Vikings winning it. They won so many games close last season. Their defense didn't get much better, and they let Dalvin Cook go, which makes no sense at all.
I think it does. I think that's how much faith they have in Madison.
But there's also, I think,
Cody, you're right. By the way, you're right.
Yeah, the David Montgomery signing, I think, is going to fly under the radar.
It'll be fine. They won't lose a beat with that.
Yeah. But also, I think for the Detroit Lions, there's also the surprising move that should give the Detroit Lions themselves, the roster, a lot of confidence, and that's the retaining of Ben Johnson. Retaining of Ben Johnson, that offensive coordinator, who is an up-and-coming star in this business. The fact that you see that, and with what he was able to do with a guy like Jared Goff, and oh, by the way, even if Jared Goff is there, you now brought in a guy who is at least capable in Teddy Bridgewater. If whatever reason, if something was to go down, you have something there with a guy like Teddy Bridgewater that can.
I would play Hendon Hooker over Bridgewater, but that's just me.
But I mean, I'm just saying, like, I
see a dude make a business decision, I don't need him on the field on my team. Let's just put it that way.
We won't get into that logistics, but I just think that, like, I think though that they are much more suited to take that next step this year. They may actually take one. They may be a year away, for sure. But the important thing for them to get to that point is continuity. And there had to have been a reason why Ben Johnson stayed there. Now, the Vikings are definitely interesting because the Vikings are one. Their defense is terrible. Like I'm not really a huge fan of their defense.
Didn't they get a new defensive coordinator this year though?
Maybe.
I thought the Minnesota got a new D coordinator, which sometimes that can be all it takes. Just a guy who's smart enough to call the right plays at the right time.
Yeah, maybe. I know they had Ed Donato last year.
Are you looking it up, Pinky? Are you checking me? I feel like that happened.
I can't remember the name.
I like Kevin O'Connell.
For sure. Absolutely.
Flores.
Flores. Okay, so
I thought.
So I mean, but that's an upgrade. There's no denying that. That's an upgrade. The question is just what is he going to be doing with that players that he has there in Minnesota. That
there's the most talent, but again, the best coaches just know how to put guys in the right position to make plays.
Yeah. But
that makes guys, all pros all of a sudden. So
right. But the one thing that's going to get them over the hump is, I guess, how quickly Jordan Addison can be able to pick it up, and two, can Addison and Madison, I guess it somewhat rhymes, but but can Madison?
I'll accept it.
Yeah, can Madison take that leap? Because we have been. Or I should say the Vikings have been preaching really even since Mike Boone and Alexander Madison about these guys that are really, really good underneath Dalvin Cook who have just failed to shine or given that opportunity. They finally are able to see that opportunity with Madison.
Madison has shined when given the opportunity. It's just one or two games here and there.
Madison's put up 100 yards when you give him 25 carries, but he doesn't do anything special like Cook does.
No,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I disagree, Pinky. I think that but I think that it's just more about can Madison. Maybe the question is just can Madison do it for a much more lengthier period of time?
That's a fair concern. Can he stay healthy when he's the top dog, when he's the workhorse?
So that's the question. Obviously, can Kirk Cousins get that monkey off of his back and win the big one and continue and further on into the playoffs? That's going to be the continuing theme.
So I think that's kind of a misnomer. I've always been kind of a Kirk guy. He's ever played terrible in those bright light moments. He just sometimes hasn't played great, but it hasn't been necessarily his fault that they've lost. Again, you talked about how bad that defense was last year. If that defense gives them another possession or two, things could have been very different. So I'm not as worried about Cousins as I am the defense. You have to remember, though, they also have Hawkinson, who they brought in last year. So that offense is loaded with weapons.
Agree.
Flores as the new defensive coordinator, that defense is gonna look better. Like it's inevitable. So it's gonna be a battle of the Titans, I feel like. And then I feel like, Chicago's still kind of down here, which breaks my heart with Fields. And then Green Bay could be right here, or they could be way down here. So I think Green Bay has the biggest margin for error based on what happened last year. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Where are we headed next, Pinky? Fly us.
All right. We're going a little bit closer to home here. Let's talk about the NFC West. We can make this quick on the Cardinals. They're tanking, not tanking.
They suck.
Right. First pick next year, Caleb Williams. But the only thing I wonder about that is you can't keep Kyler Murray. You can't draft Caleb Williams and keep Kyler Murray. But will there actually be any trade value for Kyler? Because you definitely aren't cutting his ass. There's no way in hell you're cutting that contract.
But
that would ruin your team for years.
I don't know anybody who would want Kyler, in my opinion. I don't know.
I think there are some teams, I don't know which ones, but quarterback desperate teams are always searching, Pinky. And
honestly, the only team I could think of that would want him right now, and it's still an if, is Tampa Bay.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing is there will be quarterback desperate teams that will inquire. That's just the name of the game. You keep swinging and swinging and swinging.
I feel like it would need.
Does he go to McVay? That's a wild thought. Does he go to McVay and the Rams?
I could see that. I could see McVay thinking, I can do something with that guy.
I also could see
he would.
This is a complete wild card if we're going to keep it even more in division. But San Francisco, I set a wild card.
I know, but I only
thinking that's more crazy than wild.
I think Sam Darnold's the dude there personally.
Right.
And if Sam Darnold's the dude, what is he, 25?
But I'm just saying, San Francisco
might be younger than that.
But it's not to say that Kyler Murray's a swing. But I'm just saying that San Francisco has yet to even take that swing on a quarterback. They could have taken a swing on, say, a Lamar Jackson if they were to pull a trade off like that. Or
Justin Fields, and we wouldn't be talking about this at all. Instead, they went with Trey Lance after trading up 2 firsts for him. So
I just think that we can never discount San Francisco. I agree that I think that they're very low on the totem pole.
That's
but
gross.
But
Cody, I couldn't see that simply because they already did the short quarterback with movement thing, and I think they're over it. And Kyler hasn't shown him anything that's light years above Russ that would make it worthwhile. So I don't see Pete Carroll traveling down that road, especially considering the type of quarterback he liked to have at USC. So yeah, Pinky, they're going to be bad. But I don't think, and it's wild to say, but I can see a very, very clear path where the Rams are neck and neck with them this season.
Yeah, I can too. You're saying division-wise, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Cooper Kupp, I don't know how long he'll be out, but I mean, but the thing is, the most important thing, and it's the most important thing for anything for a team, is you have to have a healthy quarterback. And Matt Stafford is healthy. And we saw what he can be able to do, health-wise. Now, granted, it was Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp.
Well, they're saying he's healthy, but I think he should have had Tommy John surgery. And I am seriously scared that he's going to re-injure that this year.
Well,
UCL tendon is nothing to mess with. And usually rest does not work once you've had the injury.
Yeah, and so I'm saying healthy. That's the thing. It's I'm saying he's healthy.
He is now, and I'll agree with you on that. So they can start really hot. The reason I said they could be with the Cardinals is because of Cooper Kupp's getting a little nicked up here and there, it seems like. Does Stafford play the whole season? Does Donald all of a sudden go, why did I come back? And kind of say, I need some days off. Like, there's a lot of question marks with this team.
But see, that's the thing that also puts me at the ease to say that the Rams will be possibly second or first in that division is because this is it. It just feels like this is it for.
I agree, but come on, they don't have the talent to get above Seattle or San Francisco. Like, there's no way they could ever get above both of those teams. Like, I can't see a path where that could ever happen.
But you just don't know.
Depleted.
I know,
like,
but
one injury to them is like one injury to San Francisco.
I mean, they're literally depending on Stafford, Kupp, and Donald. Like, those are their three guys.
Like, that's brutal.
The thing that scares me about the Rams, though, is exactly what I said earlier, though, is because Matt Stafford relies 115% on Cooper Kupp. That's the thing that
he does. But
that's
you
the thing.
Stop the guy. Why would you go anywhere else? You know, that's kind of the issue.
I know, but you need. That's the whole point of them acquiring for Allen Robinson. Now, granted, for some weird reason,
God, what a terrible experiment. Yeah,
but like for some reason it flopped. But like I think that they need to find something outside of Cooper Kupp for them to have that kind of consistent. So that's where I'm saying, like, in terms of like the over the course of the season, in order for them to prove that they can challenge a Seattle or challenge, these teams for a division, they need to find something outside of Cooper Kupp, because especially if Cooper gets injured, you need that extra capability. And I'm not talking Tyler Higbee. I like Higbee. I think he's a solid tight end, but you need those guys. You need those players. Van Jefferson, he's solid. I'm not sure why they got rid of Robert Woods.
Could he take a step forward?
Yeah.
Could he take a step forward? Could Pakua Nakua, is that
right?
I feel like that's the guy's name. The rookie out of was it Utah State or something like that? But there's been great things about him coming out of camp. Cam Akers is healthy for a full season. He's shown he can be quite the little workhorse. But there's just so many question marks as you keep talking about here that's just crazy. Yeah,
and then that's where you go to Seattle. And even as a Bronco fan, it does pain you to say it, but Seattle is the best team in that division for not just the fact for not just. I think they're the best team in the division.
Okay, hey, I'm gonna listen. I'm just saying. Well, I was not expecting to hear that. That's all.
You ever fall for a troll every now and then?
No, I don't do bridges very often.
No, but they're a team. They are definitely a team, though, that if you talk about a team that can challenge the 49ers, though, in just this year, it's absolutely Seattle. The way that they were able to draft this last year, and then go out and surprise everybody and get Devin Witherspoon, which it was a questionable pick at that point in time, but it's going to pay huge dividends.
I loved it. I thought it was a great pick.
We talked about on the 5280 podcast about the importance about having two shutdown corners. It goes to that exact same topic, having two shutdown corners, guys like Tyreek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, who may have been the best the best cornerback in the, in this,
I had Woolen as defensive player of the year last year over South Carolina.
I'm talking this draft. I'm talking about.
No, he's just adding to what they have.
Yeah, but then you add Jackson Smith and Jigbo, who to this team, where frankly there were a lot of people who really felt like he may have been wide receiver one in a very, very loaded wide receiving class.
The only reason he wasn't is because of the injuries and the lack of playing time.
Exactly. But you put him in an offense with a 85-year-old Geno Smith who's getting older, but you have him with the weapons of guys, like a DK Metcalf, a Tyler Lockett, a Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has been the talk of camp. You go read what's going on in Seattle. He's been like the talk of camp. And then, oh, by the way, they drafted, I hate Michigan State with a passion. Screw Mel Tucker. But, I mean, the guy had a running back in Kenneth Walker that was
I'm a big Mel Tucker guy.
That was an absolute stud. Was an absolute stud. And one more time again, Michigan State found themselves a running back. you go out and you basically have this team one more time again lean heavily on the run, and now in this point in time you have 3 reliable wide receivers at this point.
And they brought in Charbonnet this year in the draft, who's a beast as a running back.
Don't leave out. They drafted 2 great tackles last year.
I was going to say, and then their offensive. Look, Seattle's good, but they're a little bit younger, a little bit more experienced than the 49ers are. And I will keep saying it until I'm proven wrong. Maybe I'll never get a chance to be proven wrong because he'll just never play. But I fully believe Sam Darnold's the best quarterback on that roster. And if he plays next year, you're looking at one of the Super Bowl favorites, one of the 3 or 4, depending on how you want to talk about it. But I think him and the Shanahan offense with those weapons around him would be insane. Darnold. Sam Darnold with San Francisco.
That's the thing that is the wild card of all of this is San Francisco. Truly, and that's why it comes back to this, because Purdy did the unthinkable. I mean, everybody saw what he was able to do at Iowa State, where he was so good under Matt Campbell.
There were some people giving him a first-round grade, so it's not like just because he was Mr. Irrelevant didn't mean he didn't have some potential. Again, he's a guy that stayed in a year too long, and it cost him a bunch of money.
Not to use a comparison. It's not Chad Kelly by any means, because Purdy didn't have any off-the-field issues. It was just Purdy crashed and burned so bad that it was
a bad senior season.
Yeah, well, it was actually a bad couple seasons for that matter. But I mean, you can very obviously see talent with that, and so it was just, what is Purdy going to be like? What are they going to get out of Lance? Because right now it seems like everything that you see out of practice is not great from Trey Lance. And not
good at all.
In terms of Sam Darnold is absolutely the wild card of all of this, because here's a guy, in comparison's sake, that, maybe this is entering the conversation of guys like a Zach Wilson or, maybe even a Justin Fields right now with the Chicago Bears about a career being wasted with one team. And, Sam Darnold was the brunt of that. And I think that if you put him in everything that he had at the San Francisco 49ers, it will be interesting to see what he can do. And if Purdy is healthy, you talked about the Tommy John surgery with, Matt Stafford. Here's a guy with Purdy who basically had Tommy John surgery, and he seems to be recovering rather fast compared to some of these other Tommy John surgeries as well. So, and granted, he's obviously a lot younger versus Stafford, but he's recovering rather quickly. So what is that going to be? And
have you guys seen the Shanahan quote that came out a little over a week ago?
Oh, you made sure I saw it.
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd remember. Basically, Shanahan said, without anybody, asking a question to force the topic, he basically came out and said, why can't Sam Darnold be the next Steve Young? I.e., started somewhere else, didn't go great, sat behind some people, whatever it was, kind of journeyman if you want to look at it that way, and then got to San Francisco and flourished. Why would a coach say that unless he's seen something where he goes, I have something here and people will see it, I'm just not sure when.
Agree.
So, and that, look, this since the day they picked him up and he signed with them. So this isn't like I'm all of a sudden on some bandwagon because I'm talking head said it.
No,
he can attest, this shit's recorded. You can go back and see it. That would put them over the edge. And the kicker about that then is if he does get hurt, then you do have Purdy to rely on. If Lance is healthy, because it doesn't sound like he's going to have a trade market and he just sits somehow as a third QB that they keep on the roster, which would be crazy. But you're not trading Darnold because you just signed him for cheap. So the only other thing you could do is possibly trade Purdy. And I don't see that happening either. So even if Darnold get nicked up and he eventually started like he's been known to from time to time, then you can fall back on these other solid options. Where if they had at least one of those options in the playoffs last year, solid argument that says they beat Philadelphia, right? So it's hard for me to put Seattle over the hump yet. Do they get the playoffs? Hell yeah. They're going to They're going to make the playoffs. That's a talented team.
Seahawks are a playoff team for sure.
Yeah,
But-
for sure. But I just don't see them quite competing with San Francisco for the division yet.
But I'm with you. I had the same reservations as far as Darnold because I was a big believer in Darnold, and I love Darnold's talent. It was so that's why it was just like. So the question that always ran in my brain was, why Darnold? Why Darnold? You know, especially everything that Purdy gave you at the halfway mark, and he looked amazing at that halfway mark, especially even the addition of Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
And they're going to get McCaffrey for a full season finally.
Elijah Mitchell, who showed out as a rookie until he had some injury issues.
Yeah.
And that receiving – Ayuk could turn into a top 5 receiver this year.
Good.
Flashes at the back half of the season last year where he could take a huge step this year. So, yeah, it's hard for me to – now, DK Metcalf could be a top 5 receiver too. There's talent there. So don't get me wrong. There's some very comparable similarities between these two teams. But I think maybe what it comes down to is I just trust Shanahan more than I trust Pete Carroll.
Maybe
that's it.
But yeah, it's
Pinky. No, finish your thought, Cam. Sorry, but then fly us over to the next.
That's just where I'm at. I don't understand the Darnold move, and until we actually get clarity on that, I just will always keep asking why Darnold, because I think that he's still got some of that talent that got wasted, and until we actually get clarity.
So I agree with that for sure. I just think they're going to roll with Purdy until Purdy shows he can't do it or he gets hurt.
But that's the question is like, I agree with that to a certain extent, but like how long is that leash? That's the thing. And until we get the clarity of how long that leash is.
I mean, he operated the Shanahan offense pretty close to perfection.
Sure, but
he doesn't have the arm talent of Sam Darnold, without a doubt,
or the running ability.
He doesn't. He doesn't for sure. But what he did do, he handed the ball off. He hit the open guy. He ran it as efficient as you could run it for those 8 weeks that he won games before they ran into Philadelphia and he got hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to take anything away from Purdy. I just think. Yeah. And to me, this is how I would always play it. And Pinky, I've been very consistent about this. You play the best talent until proven otherwise. And if they're truly having an open competition, that's always the kicker. If you're really having a fairly open competition,
but
which
they're not.
I do believe they're doing. I do.
Shanahan literally came out and said Purdy's the guy as long as he's healthy. Like he said that.
Because Shanahan, Lynch, that whole organization is known for being PC when it comes to the media. So the thing that creates the least amount of storylines is very simply saying Purdy's our guy. He's healthy and we're rolling with him. But that doesn't mean in camp you're not doing something completely different. And I believe they're going to do enough different to see who the best talent is. And when you have a team that all sees one guy's more talented than the other, and then you play the guy that's less talented, what happens? Every single time in the NFL.
And oh, by the way, since we're not at preseason yet, the preseason could be the determining factor of who is the starter.
Sure, absolutely, it could.
So, take us out.
We'll see.
All right. Well, there's only one division left in the NFC, guys.
Which one?
I mean, it's the NFC East, fellas. Which
the one Washington's winning.
Probably the most interesting overall. Like, we'll look at it.
Cody, wait, before we get going, Cody at one point said he had a question about the NFC East. So let's start with that.
There was 3 playoff teams last season. That's why I find this to be the most interesting division in the NFC.
Yes, he still classifies him as such. He's probably the closest to changing Pinky's mind, but he still classifies him as such.
I with 14 rushing, like 13 or 14 rushing touchdowns, although they were all like within a yard or so, like he's pretty close to changing my mind, Cody. He played really well with A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Devontae.
The better quarterback in the Super Bowl.
He played really well. If it weren't for that fumble return for a touchdown, Eagles probably win that Super Bowl.
I think that there's actually a fair argument the Eagles actually had the better Super Bowl, and I actually think that there's a fair argument that Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback that night in that Super Bowl.
Let's ask this: does he improve on these stats, Pinky? If he improves on them, to what extent does he need to improve on them for you to be finally convinced he's a quarterback? He threw for 3,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He ran for 760 yards and 13 touchdowns.
I need that passing to get. I need those passing touchdowns to get to about 30.
Okay.
I need that yards to be about 40. I need at least over 4,000.
So if he gets 300 more yards and 8 more passing touchdowns,
I mean, he's right there. He's right there.
He could do the same thing on the ground, but as long as he improves those passing numbers to that extent, you would go ahead and reclassify him.
I'd feel pretty good that he has learned how to play the quarterback position.
I'm not even going down that road tonight. Oh, the way you just said that is so brutal.
The way you actually ended that is actually brutal. Because he's, oh my God.
He's gotten better every year, and I give him tons of credit. I have the second pick in a super flex redraft. Jalen Hurts is my guy.
Cody, this is something I've been eating Pinky's ear about for almost the entire offseason.
I don't think this is Sam Howell's fault. I just think he plays for a shitty team. I don't think it's going to happen.
A great OC and a lot of talent around him.
Well, yeah, the Washington is a case where, man, they are a lot like to what I explained with the Atlanta Falcons and Carolina. It all hinges on quarterback.
I have a great point here. Ron Rivera is a dead man walking. You have a new owner that's going to want his guy. And
his contract's up at the end of the year, isn't he? It's not like he's going to get fired. Like his contract's up at the end of the year.
I don't know.
So
most of the time, you have a new owner that's going to come in and wants his own guy. He's going to want his own quarterback. I just don't see things going well. I just don't.
He's heard all this, Cody, a lot. A lot. He's heard all this a lot.
You know,
I liked Sam Howell coming out. I did. I like Sam Howell coming out. I just don't think he's got a good situation. He's like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had the Jets.
Sam Darnold's better.
Sam Howell's got the Commanders. I mean, the Commanders are going to change names for God's sake.
Probably back to the Redskins.
But thank God they got sold. Thank God they got sold.
Let's be honest. Like, they finally have a good ownership group since the one that had Joe Gibbs originally.
Right. They've got Harris and Magic Johnson. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. So
why are we celebrating that?
Why not? It's better than Snyder.
The way you said "Let's go, baby" was almost like you're a huge fan of the Commanders.
I felt bad for them.
Redskins have kind of always been my NFC team to an extent because the first Super Bowl I can really remember watching was the one that they won against the Broncos, like very, very vaguely. And then they won with Mark Rippon. Like, I remember, that's the one I really actually remember. Yeah. And I was rooting for them. And then I realized that they played against Dallas, and I didn't like Dallas because a friend of mine growing up was a Cowboys fan, and he wouldn't stop talking about them all the time in Broncos country. So then I just always rooted against Dallas. And kind of attached myself. I was a big Art Monk fan growing up. That was one of the first wide receivers I really liked. I've kind of always had a soft spot for Washington.
There's no doubt in my mind it hinges on quarterback, though. It hinges on
talent on that team,
but
both sides of the ball.
The talent level on the offensive side of the ball is impressive. Like Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, tight end, bit sketchy, but
Logan Thomas can't stay healthy. That's the only issue.
Yeah, but he's also getting older. Brian Robinson is something. Antonio Gibson's actually versatile. You could use him in a lot of different ways.
Right, he's a wide receiver basically in college. So it's going to be interesting to see what Bieniemy can do with him.
Right. Defensively, there. I think that. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do because defensively, you hear the rumors of even Chase Young wanting out, and that's proof, I think, about how deep the,
Well, I don't think they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, did they?
No.
No.
That's the crazy thing.
And so, but defensively, they're stout. They are stout up front. I mean, they may have.
But keep in mind, sorry, Cam, keep in mind that was Dan Snyder's organization not picking up his 5th-year option. So take that for what it's worth as far as intelligent levels are concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough though. He's been hurt so much.
He has.
It's tough to pick up that 5th-year option.
Yeah. It's just one of those things though that it hinges on Sam Howell and but like that's the thing for me. It hinges on Sam Howell. If he can be able to cut down on the turnovers, just truly trust the offense that is there. And Eric Bieniemy being a former running back, I think helps him because obviously Howell is a big-bodied quarterback that he can be mobile and he can use him with in certain situations. So I'm intrigued with that possibility, especially with the running game. It's just the decision-making for me. And he's got a huge arm, like I said. He just has to trust the fact that he's got some really, really good wide receivers, and he can't make the risky throw. He can't make. I mean, you can make the risky throw here and like. It's basically, it's basically when you're a quarterback, and it's like the aggressive, like awareness, if you will, as a quarterback, like knowing the fine line. It's like what Aaron Rodgers had, right, when he was so good. I mean, he still is at times, like even when he makes these throws, but it's just like he's so good at understanding about being aggressive and hitting those tight windows when he needs to. Right. Sam Howell needs to understand, basically, how he can operate that. I mean, Drew Lock had that issue, right? Drew Lock had some other issues, but I mean, it was just the biggest thing is like if he can be able to find that sweet spot between that and really work on just being, pun intended, a quarterback of that team, but just like in a sense, like almost like Tua Tagovailoa. Like I think the Washington Commanders actually might have something. It's just they really need to cut down on the turnovers from a young quarterback perspective.
All right. Too much time on probably the worst team of the division.
Or the NFC.
Cardinals are the worst team in the NFC, so I don't know if that's the
Dallas is a solid roster. Their coach is flawed. Their owner is flawed. They're going to
hold on. So we talk about the Cowboys. I'm not sure about all of their like wide receivers. Cooks and Lamb should be good. Tony Pollard's not going to carry that offense. He's just not. He's good.
We say that now.
They need a guy who they can hand the ball to a lot and then give Tony Pollard open a hole for that guy. That guy's awesome. He really is. I just think they're being held back by McCarthy. I do.
Exactly.
I think they're a NFC Championship, Super Bowl caliber team, but they have McCarthy, and I just think they've got another playoff disappointment upcoming.
Cody, Dak is on the hot seat in the sense that I don't think they would mind moving on from him if a better option presented itself. But they're not just going to move on from him.
But they would
have to be I can't even see a scenario where another guy comes up that's worth moving on from him.
But the Cowboys are making the playoffs.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think they would move on from him if a better option presented itself. But what better option is going to present itself? Because the other quarterbacks of the NFC and the AFC, the ones that you truly want, are already on teams that are either on the rise or competing right now.
Nobody's getting moved.
And they're not going to draft high enough to get Caleb Williams. That's just not going to happen. Kyler Murray to the boys? No. I don't think that's a Jerry type of guy in any way. I don't think they'd move on from Dak for Kyler.
Well,
especially considering what you'd have to give up.
That's the other part of it, though. Dak also almost screams a Jerry guy. Like, that's the other part of this. Is like Dak also kind of screams being a Jerry guy. And so I think that now I agree wholeheartedly in a sense this is a big year for not just Mike McCarthy, but Dak Prescott. Like, this is a big year for Prescott. I like
sure.
him. I actually like him as a quarterback. Everything that he's been able to do as a processor of information and processor of the line of scrimmage has been super impressive from day one since he's come into the league from Mississippi State. It's been so impressive. And I really like him as a quarterback. I just think that to the certain extent of like a Kirk Cousins dilemma, he needs to, once he's in the playoffs, he needs to be able to show proof that he can advance past, some more rounds. Like, for instance, like when they went to the NFC Championship that one year, they should have been able to have, gone much further. Now, granted, there were, I think, some other extra parts of the Cowboys that weren't necessarily on Dak in terms of the undiscipline of the defense, Dan Quinn. Anyway, I just think that, like, as far as just what they've been able to do, though, they have to prove they're not a regular season team. They have to prove at the end of the day they're not a regular season team anymore.
The problem with the Cowboys, at least the last 2 seasons with Dan Quinn, has been they generate turnovers, but they really don't stop you 20-20.
No.
If they don't get the turnover, the team's scoring points.
But it's been built on those turnovers. Like, that's specifically why it was built, and they're going to get them. That's kind of the thing.
Right. And so they just need to make sure that, like, they get over that. Now, in a weak NFC, there's a much larger window for that to happen, especially obviously with Aaron Rodgers not there anymore, or even Tom Brady. So the window is much larger for you to take it and run with it, possibly, where you can be able to face the Eagles, or the 49ers in the NFC Championship. You can actually be able to possibly do that. But once you get to that point, what can you do and this is looking straight at Mike McCarthy into the face, what can you do that is not a dumb time management or, anything that is going to put your team in a terrible position to succeed? Because I will say I think Dan Quinn is the successor, right? We've already said that,
right?
But it's just like this is just unequivocally.
So my biggest issue with the Cowboys right now, they play in the same division as the Eagles, which I think will be the number 1 seed of the NFC again this season. They killed the draft. They've got a lot of great talent. My opinion, Tony Pollard right now is a great offensive weapon, but he can't carry that team. And when Mike McCarthy says, you know what, Kellen Moore was good, but we need to run the ball more, they didn't do anything. Like, go sign Leonard Fournette.
But by that same token, a lot of
Hunt. Somebody else to run the ball.
But by that same token, though, that was also proof that Ezekiel Elliott was trash. Ezekiel Elliott was really bad with the Cowboys.
He had like 800 yards and 12 touchdowns. I wouldn't call that really bad.
He's a plotter, though. He's not going to get you 20-yard. He's
But
not
that's
going to
the
break
thing.
a
Like,
run for 20 yards.
why not bring him back and let him be the spell or the short yardage guy, and then run Pollard? Like, that actually seems like a smart decision to make.
I just think that. I think that we disagree on the Pollard stuff, but I do think, though, the running game has to be a big part of this, and they very clearly are going to be relying on Tony Pollard because they have to, Well, they don't have to. They gave him the franchise tag. If they really believed in Tony Pollard, they would give him the contract extension, not the franchise tag. And we've had the franchise tag discussion, at length, Caleb. But it's just but if they feel comfortable with where they were with Pollard, and if they feel comfortable with Pollard versus where they were with Zeke, they would rely on the running game. And if Pollard has shown to be that type of player to, take the ease off of it, good on him. And by the way, they do have Deuce Vaughn. I know he's a scout son now with the, his dad's with the organization and everything, but I wouldn't, sleep on a guy like a Deuce Vaughn. I think the Deuce Vaughn will have some meaningful snaps. I think Vaughn will show some things in Dallas. But the thing, at the end of the day, you're also kind of talking about a lightning back versus a lightning back. And so it's just like you definitely do need a thumper in that lineup. So who's going to be the thumper that's going to be taking the ease off of guys like Deuce Swan?
Well, that's why they brought in Ronald Jones, and then he gets suspended. So
Right. So
it'll be interesting to see what they do. There's still quite a few free agent backs out there that Jerry could dip into real cheaply. He's just not known to do that.
No.
I think we can say Philly's the best team. They just got better, and we can move on with Philly.
Yeah, there's nothing else to be said.
Howie Roseman's playing chess, and everybody else is playing chess.
Absolutely. I mean, you bring in Swift, you draft the defense that you did in the draft. Yeah, you lost Reddick, but I mean, you pretty surely replaced that and then some, by all accounts. So
where did Reddick go?
No, they kept,
lose Reddick.
No, they
kept Reddick.
They kept
Who did
Reddick.
they lose?
They lost Corey Gardner Johnson to Detroit.
Yeah, I know that. I thought they lost a pass rusher.
I don't think so.
Wrong on that?
You may be wrong on that.
It was Gardner Johnson that they lost.
Yeah,
No, they re-signed Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, and of Hassan Reddick.
Okay.
If there are some question marks, and I mean like fair question marks because of some of the stuff that they've lost, I would say the linebacker position, right? Because the linebacker position got hit hard in free agency. But
you replaced it in the draft, by all accounts.
But they did it exactly the way they did in Ndamukong Suh when they got Suh, which was they go out and they re-sign, or they went out and signed Miles Jack and someone else recently in one day. I forget who it was, but
I mean, you got Kobe Dean and
right.
Who was the other Georgia guy that they just brought in along with the best guy in the draft for the D line?
Nolan Smith.
They just reloaded. Yeah, thank you.
And they also traded. They lost Miles Sanders, but they traded for a former Georgia Bulldog. But DeAndre Swift. So
they brought in Rashad Penny, who, if healthy, has proven he is a really good back.
Right. So
they just loaded talent. Maybe some question marks with possible injuries, maybe.
I was actually going to say, and again, we're nitpicking the Eagles, by the way. But I think that if you're nitpicking some of the stuff that has gone on in the offseason, I would say my biggest concern would be the right guard spot because they lost Isaac Siamalu. But even then, the Philadelphia Eagles have shown to be
still could be considered
really
the best offensive line in the league.
But really good in terms of offensive line development, right? And so I mean, they put Landon Dickinson, who was a center coming out of college. I'm not saying they'll do this with Cam Jurgens, but I'm just saying I would not be surprised if they ask Cam Jurgens to say, hey, why don't you go play guard, learn how to play guard, and he'll flourish just because of how successful that offensive line system is.
Right.
So I mean, so if I was to nitpick,
I mean, Kelsey's still there, so that position is
one more year.
Nobody's taking that for the year.
But if you were to nitpick something with the Eagles, it's that right guard spot for me.
That's fair. But
I guess you could say the wide receiver position. I guess you could say the wide receiver position as well. Can Quez Watkins take that next step?
You have arguably the best wide receiver duo in the league. Smith is only getting better, and so is AJ Brown.
Right.
Didn't they lose a wide receiver?
It doesn't matter what they have, huh?
Didn't they lose a wide receiver actually in the offseason?
To be perfectly honest with you, because those two make up for all the deficiencies.
Yeah, they have AJ and Devontae right now.
I agree with you.
And then they have a top 3 tight end by all accounts right now, depending on where you want to lean towards, in Dallas Goedert. So,
Jack Stoll.
Damn. Yeah, they're good. They're good. Philly's good.
Pride of Colorado, Jack Stoll, and Nebraska Cornhuskers, Jack Stoll.
All right, fellas, AFC.
Husker.
I think there's a theme here. You know what division we're starting with in the AFC?
Power Cam. I'm a little disappointed in you right now,
bro. I don't know. I'm distracted. He said AFC, and I'm go Big Red.
Well, the next division is the AFC South, since they're really not that interesting.
Look, let's just keep in mind, Pinky, if you would listen to me a little bit more, you'd be a lot smarter guy. I'm just saying.
Now I want to punch you in the nuts.
I mean, you can feel that way all you want, but the fact remains, I'm kind of a smart guy when it comes to this. Looking
next
at
time
time
I
and
see
predicting
you,
things.
I'm giving you gifts for your baby
And a
and
knuckle
punching you
sandwich.
in the nuts. That's what's.
Just saying, man. Just saying. There's a team in this division, along with many other things I've been proven right about over the years.
I mean, I don't find this division very interesting at the moment.
I think there's a lot of interesting things.
The Jags are going to win the division. Okay.
Yeah, I we're good there, but I think there's some really interesting storylines within this division. Ray doesn't have any faith.
All right, here's what I got.
It's I'm batting
So here's
plus.
Here's
and
my
I've got a curse. Like those are two truths.
I'm going to make you really, really be surprised right here.
Oh boy, he's gonna say the Houston Texans are going to the playoffs.
No. Oh, hell no. Jaguars could be the number 1 seed of the AFC.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
I'm out.
No, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I'm good with that, Pinky.
And Cam, it's only based on schedule. They play 6 games against shitty teams. It's like the Patriots. They play 6 games against shitty
I could
teams.
see a path for that. Now, is it more likely to happen or less likely? Probably on the less likely side, but I could see a path to that.
And I stole that from like Rich Eisen or Colin Cowherd.
Oh, so it's not your thought. You're actually playing for.
That's tough, Pinky. Just when I thought you were having a legitimate,
solid,
honest.
Wow.
They talked to me into it, and I'm not a guy to just steal something and not give somebody credit. So.
Wow. So in this day and age of plagiarism, wow.
I mean, look, I've got.
See, we already lost
my
the
bubble and stole my thunder, but I've got.
We lost the watcher
as a dark horse playoff team that could make a run in the NFC, and I actually think the Jags are the exact same on the AFC. But I was on them last year, so it's not like I'm going out of my way this year.
Well,
I was already there.
Here's part of my thinking: they got 6 games against shitty teams, and literally they are I can't even remember who fumbled the ball. They're a fumble within the 10-yard line of tying the Chiefs up in that AFC divisional round game.
I mean, the thing with the Jacksonville Jaguars is like they've always had that talent, at least the last couple of years. But I will say, like, they are definitely a team. If you were to buy stock on like a really young team right now between, say, like the Lions and the Jaguars, I would definitely say, if you're going to be buying stock on a team, it'd be the Jacksonville Jaguars. See how, like, he says something about Jaguars and then both of them leave, apparently. So now I'm stuck by myself. These guys.
I apologize. I needed a refill.
Guys, man.
I needed a refill because we're starting the AFC.
He drove me to drink already with the Jags. With the Jags.
You finish your thought.
No, but
yeah, I'm high on the Jags.
No, and I am too. I think that if you look at the Jags though, and if you're buying stock on teams and their future, the Detroit Lions and the Jacksonville Jaguars are some definite teams that you would be looking at as far as buying stock into the future, as far as for what they can accomplish in the future. Jacksonville would be atop that list. And I think that the one thing that is so clear about them is just their offense is it has the makings to be something pretty special in a couple of years. And myself included.
This year.
But I'm just saying myself included, like for a couple of years, I will say myself included hated the Christian Kirk deal that they handed out. That said, well, because he never showed out to be he never showed out to be.
Cam. We agree, Cam.
We finally agree on something. I'm kidding.
He got, what was it, a 5-year, $15 million deal?
No, it was a $20 million.
Yeah, $20 million plus.
Per, wasn't it? It was 5 for 75, wasn't it?
No, it was like a 5-year, $100 million deal or something. It was $20 million plus. But I had doubts about the fact about the deal. But that said, you're adding a playmaker to the mix, right? And so you're adding him, then you add you re-sign this offseason, you re-sign Evan Ingram, you go out and make the trade
4
for
years,
Kelly.
72. So it's right in between of where we both thought it was.
Right. Or it maybe has like the ceiling to get it to 80 or something from what I saw or whatever. But
37 fully guaranteed. Base salary for 2023 was 15.5.
It's a rich contract for sure. But
I didn't think it was though. So and you're with Pinky for sure. You guys definitely agree on that. I saw enough from him that I thought he would be a great 1A. I wasn't quite sure if he could be a full 1 on his own, but I thought he would be a great 1A. And he kind of proved that last year. But now you bring in Calvin Ridley, and he can truly be a 1A, and he's going to have a ton of space to work with.
Yeah, and that's my leading point to that, Caleb, is just like you have weapons now where you have a true number 1 and a running game, with ETN. And didn't they add like James Conner or something? They added a back.
They tried to tank Bigsby.
Yeah. But they added some running. They added the running attack to this with ETN. Doug Peterson is a phenomenal coach. He doesn't get enough credit for what he is as a play caller in this league.
So pause for just a second, you two, because I want to get your honest opinion. If I told you a receiver had 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns off of 84 catches, you could pay him $16 million a year, you would say that's a bad contract?
No, and well, at this point in time, he earned that deal. Like that's what I was.
He has.
I think he earned it after last year.
So Cam thinks it's a good deal now. Wasn't thrilled about it at first. Pinky, you're still bad deal, aren't you?
I mean, I guess we'd see how, again, there wasn't a lot of other options in Jacksonville last year. Now there is. So I guess it would see how that continued performance continues. Will they?
So if he does the same numbers again with Calvin Ridley, obviously blowing up because that's what it would be, and he puts up another 1,108, what would you say?
Sure, that's a fine deal.
So you just need to see that consistent production, and then you'd think it was a good deal.
Yeah.
Sure.
You just don't believe he can give you that consistent production. Am I thinking about that correctly?
I don't.
That's fair. Okay.
And so
he hasn't. So I'll give you that. I've just seen enough flashes from him that says if he truly got that opportunity, he would shine, and I think that's what we're seeing. So this year will be definitely a prove-it year for him, especially if Calvin Ridley can ball out.
So we all agree Jags will win that division.
That was the more surprising deal to me, Cody. That's the one that I didn't think was great. But in Jones's defense, he also played really well when given the opportunities last year.
Dave Jones did play pretty
surprising.
Surprising.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
He's like the 4th option.
And that's the thing with Jacksonville that makes them so exciting because they surpassed expectations with a lot of the deals that they handed out, that they played so well. But, and for a team that basically lumped into getting Doug Peterson, they're in a great spot right now. And I will say,
he can go off this year. Talking like 1,700 possible total yards plus.
All purpose,
easy.
You mean all purpose?
Yeah.
I will say,
and a good 14 touchdowns.
So watch
Etienne go off this year.
But I will say though, to Cody's point though, I will say, like Carolina, and this is probably how high I am on CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, don't sleep on Houston. I'm with Cody on that part. Like, don't.
I love CJ Stroud. I think he was the best quarterback in this draft class.
So, and I was Bryce Young, but I mean, again, like at that point, like for me, it's like, because, like we were kind of splitting hairs, and I didn't hate CJ Stroud.
Yep.
I just saw the playmaking side of Bryce Young, and that's what sold me on it. Versus, Stroud, who is like the prolific.
Now you say don't sleep on Stroud, but let's be honest. I'm hearing actually a lot of great things coming out about Anthony Richardson with the Colts.
Right.
And not just coach speak. I'm hearing players talk about this dude is looking legit.
If we're talking, we've had this conversation before, and I'll get to the Texans in a little bit, but if you're talking strictly ceiling, and I said this before, I think on your guys' show and even 5280, but Anthony Richardson, AR-15, has the highest ceiling out of any of those three quarterbacks.
Right.
I'm actually surprised Carolina didn't take him first overall because of Frank Wright.
Yeah. But so then to Houston, I love the fact that one of the things that they were able to do is draft CJ Stroud and build enough camaraderie of players around him and weapons around him right now. And one of the players, and it's another rookie, I would keep absolute tabs on right now. It's a player that CJ Stroud wanted. He wanted them to draft. It's Tank Dell. Tank Dell. Do not sleep on Tank Dell, and remember that name this upcoming season. I think Dell will surprise a lot of people. And so if you're in fantasy, that's a name I'd be watching. I think you're going to be talking about a PPR nightmare and one that's going to be racking up a lot of yardage and possibly touchdowns for you in some leagues. But I think
there's actually another receiver on there who's a true number one, and if he stays healthy all year, is going to show out with CJ Stroud. And he came from his bitter rival. So keep an eye on Mr. Collins there on the outside. He's a true X-receiver.
There's another one, too, and I think Houston got him as an undrafted free agent. I think it was is it Xander Hutchinson or something?
Yeah.
Xander Hutchinson, he's another one
out of Texas. I think he's out of Texas.
Iowa State, I think. He was the guy
maybe it's the Iowa State guy. Yeah.
He's the guy that I thought was like a Xavier. Yeah, Xavier Hutchinson. He was the guy. He was the guy that
I was in the Big 12.
You were right, but he was the guy I compared a little bit favorably to Tim Patrick. He's not sexy, but he's a guy that's going to be, pretty solid, and especially in a room where the wide receiver room needed a facelift a little bit.
Yep, and they proved they can run the ball.
I
don't think Davis Mills is bad. I've said this before. I think given a better situation, he might have been able to shine a little bit more.
Mechie was the guy that
Mechie, he's cancer, sat out last year. But I think Stroud's better than Davis Mills. And there's a much better coaching staff in place. I actually had D'Amico Ryan as my top Broncos hire. Out of everything.
I won't hate it.
Coming from that Shanahan tree, a young coach, a defensive mind, but because he came from the Shanahan tree, I think he knew what it took to run an offense properly in today's NFL. I just liked everything about him. And so I hate saying good things about Houston because I can't stand that ownership. I just think they make terrible choice after terrible choice. But over this last offseason, they made a lot of really right choices, and I will give them credit.
Well, let's talk about let's go quick because we got to get through this. Titans are pretty boring. Titans are boring. I'm not excited about
They could win the division, though. Let's be honest. They could go out and win the division.
If Tannehill plays well, sure.
If Ryan Tannehill jumps in a DeLorean and gets what he had back a couple years ago, they could win.
So they're definitely a dark horse in their own division. I don't think they're a dark horse to do damage in the AFC like the Jags are, but I could see a scenario where the Jags kind of fall on their face enough times to where they might get a wild card and Tennessee wins the division.
And the Colts, they've kind of pissed off Jonathan Taylor. That's kind of a bad idea. And then
they go Irsay.
They still got to decide.
Irsay is incredible.
Do you play Minshew for a little while, let Richardson keep gaining experience, or you just go right with Richardson?
No, the way that things are, you're reading in camp, Anthony Richardson's taking the first team reps right now, which already should tell you in and of itself who's probably going to be winning that competition. Minshew's great. I think they actually had planned Minshew to be the starter.
Agreed.
But I think that they were just surprised by I just think they were surprised.
Well, here's the thing. Who's the head coach?
That's exactly. Shane
let's be honest. Super intelligent dude. Look what he did with Jalen Hurts to bring him along. Yep. Why would you not run Anthony Richardson out? If he is talented enough and he's making enough plays and showing he can run the offense and understand it in camp, why would you not run him out there? Let him make the mistakes this year and grow from it instead of sitting on the bench and waiting for him to happen.
Right. And the thing is, the only thing that's holding you back as far as Anthony Richardson is you have a dumb owner who has shown the actual propensity to not show any faith to his quarterback long term. I mean, like, especially guys like Peyton Manning is in that argument, obviously, but like
he showed faith to Andrew Luck too. It's just he decided not to put an offensive line on the field for God knows what reason.
That's what I'm saying.
Luck to retire early.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he needs to be able to show the wherewithal to put a lot of pieces around him to build what Shane Steichen's vision is with what he had.
Ballard drafted pretty well there until they couldn't find a quarterback. They were drafting in such a way that had Andrew Luck not retired, we're in year 14 for Andrew Luck, maybe 12, somewhere in there. And you might be looking at the Colts as seriously a Super Bowl winner over the last 4 years or so.
And I agree with that. I just think, though, that AR-15, Anthony Richardson, he has the chance to be something special. It's just he's in an organization where they just need to show the amount of patience they can with him so that he can be that quarterback that's
true, but they have to do it with Steichen too. I think that's the kicker you can't go, well, Steichen had 2 years and we didn't get where we wanted to. We're going to bring in somebody new.
Exactly.
No. You better let Steichen have 4 or 5 years with Anthony Richardson before you decide you don't like either one of them.
It's the Steichen with Hurts, or more importantly, because of the way it is in Buffalo, McDermott and Allen. That's, if there's a model as far as head coaching stuff, that's what you should be doing.
Make sure you put weapons around him and give him an opportunity to grow if you like the talent, for sure. I like it.
All right, next division.
Pinky, you want to do Broncos next? So Clayton, are you still here? I feel like you're getting ready to have to leave for work and stuff. If you're still here, we'll do the Broncos division next just for you.
We always do the AFC West last, but we'll do them first. It's fine. I think we can all agree Raiders are going to suck. At least that's my opinion.
I swear we're still going to see Carson Wentz in the Raiders uniform before season's done. Jimmy's not going to make it the whole season, and we're gonna witness Carson Wentz with Josh McDaniels.
Without Josh Jacobs, those guys are going to be pretty bad.
But see, here's the thing:
he's sitting out. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
If we're going to be real about shit right now,
it
has nothing to do with letting his teammates down or pulling the Le'Veon Bell and losing a year of eligibility towards your next contract or whatever. He's got how many kids? Let's just be perfectly honest. He's got how many kids? It's 10 now. It's crazy. He's approaching Antonio Cromartie numbers.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yes, dude. I'll try to look it up. He's got a ridiculous amount of kids already. The way that dude's taking $50,000 fines after he lived in a fucking car with his dad.
Well, he doesn't get any fines. There's no fines because he's not technically under contract until he signs his franchise tag.
Oh, that's right.
So he can technically
maybe
sit
I'm not
out
entirely correct.
He can sit out a couple weeks
money on the table,
before he makes any decisions.
But by that same token, though, we've never really seen a running back sit out for an entire season and basically boycott.
I don't think he sits out the entire season. I think the Raiders either rescind that tag or he'll come in week 4 or 5 or something.
If they rescind that tag, you will see a lot of teams be interested in Josh Jacobs. Broncos probably being one of them. Maybe.
And they should be. Everybody should be. He's reliable. He's awesome.
But
get on that bandwagon.
The Raiders, though.
All right, I got to be thinking about somebody else because this article says he only has 1 kid. So I'm way off, and it's somebody else I'm thinking of. So I apologize.
Nice accusation there, Caleb.
Hey, I'll say I was wrong. Now it's going to drive me nuts.
The thing with the thing with me on the Raiders is, they are definitely last place material for sure. But to go objective just for a little bit and talk pros in terms of the Raiders a little bit. Obviously, there's the previous working relationship of Josh McDaniels and Jimmy Garoppolo. And, so there's already the previous working relationship between both of them. We've seen what chemistry can be able to do between head coach and quarterback, a la Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan. McDaniels, as we know, is a terrible head coach, but also a great play caller. So if it's possible that the Raiders can get something out of Jimmy Garoppolo. There are at least semi-decent weapons outside of Devontae Adams where he can get it done. Now, the one thing that is
You think Devontae Adams stays the whole year?
but that's the other part of this. That's not necessarily a this season question. It's more beyond this season, and that's about Devontae Adams staying long term. I don't know if he will. And even then, even if he goes out, there's no possibility of us predicting that he'd even go to the New York Jets to go to Aaron Rodgers, because I mean, like Aaron Rodgers, I'm not saying he will or he won't. He may retire after this upcoming year. I think
he got his bag and he wants to play for a good quarterback again. Like
right.
That's how I feel. Like just the way he's talked over the last 6 months,
especially with the Raiders.
Like, I would have actually been cool taking a slight haircut and staying with Aaron Rodgers or going to play for Joe Burrow or Josh Allen. Like that's kind of what it feels like these days.
Right. Because like Hunter Renfrow, I mean, Hunter Renfrow is a pretty decent wide receiver. And funny enough, if you were to build a Josh McDaniels type wide receiver in a lab,
sure,
or for who fits a McDaniels offense, it's undoubtedly Hunter Renfrow. Even though I actually like Renfrow as an overall wide receiver.
I mean, they've got Jacoby Myers too,
and Jacoby Myers.
Yeah,
we all know
they lost Darren Waller,
but we all know that Jacoby Myers is at the very tops, like 2.5. He's not like he's a decent.
Jacoby is like possibly solid true 2 in the league.
Right. So I mean, like he can be a 2. I don't trust him to.
Everybody else we're talking about, Chase,
right,
and Higgins. Those are all 1 and 1As. Like,
right.
Decide who you want, but those are all 1 and 1As. So when I say true 2, Jacoby.
Yeah. Anyway, the point though is the Raiders have some talent. Now, the problem is the other teams in that division have just a little bit more talent than the Raiders, and that's why the Raiders will be the bottom feeders of the AFC West. And
what's the most talented roster in the AFC West, Cam? From your perspective, what's the most talented roster?
I mean, that's an easy
AFC
one
West?
for me.
It's been a trigger point, I think, for some people, even on the 5280 podcast, or even, or even some other places. But I think that the Los Angeles Chargers are the most talented.
Yes,
absolutely.
Player for player, they are the most talented roster on the AFC West.
But the biggest thing that separates the teams like the Chargers and the Chiefs is head coach and quarterback. Now I think that obviously the quarterback of Justin Herbert, there's no denying how great Herbert is, truly. Like, but I think that the thing that just has done it so well for the Chiefs is the way that Andy Reid has been able to stockpile some of that talent around Patrick Mahomes and made them a much better team, even if it's not the best talent to a certain extent.
I mean, let's be honest. Mahomes, when everybody heard 10 years, $500 million contract, they're like, oh, hell no. But in the long run, he took a Brady deal. Like, honestly, he took a Brady deal, so they're going to be able to stack talent around him for years to come. And he'll keep deferring and doing things that allows him to have, honestly, very similar rosters to what Brady had. You had Gronk, you have Kelsey. You can run with almost any receivers you want in that offense because your quarterback's crazy good, and then you try to build a solid defense. It's almost prototypical what Brady and Belichick did for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and the thing is with the Chargers, the only thing that has always held them back lately, it's the Mike McCarthy syndrome. It's Brandon Staley. Like, it's Brandon Staley.
I know that there's truth to that because his coaching decisions have cost him some games. But I will personally say, I think this year he's on the hot seat. I think if they have a bad year, he's gone. But I also believe gets to like an AFC championship game,
which is possible.
We're talking about Brandon Staley as one of the great coaches in the game. And this is why I say this. I actually personally love him. And I think his fault is not because he's been stupid and done just really bonehead moves that are common sense shit like McCarthy. I think he is over aggressive to a detriment, and that over aggressiveness in bad spots where his team didn't convert it cost them games. Not poor coaching decision. It's just his DNA. And if he can curtail that, I guess maybe a way of saying it, to having just better play calls for execution with his team, or being smarter with the moments that he's being that aggressive type where you're constantly going for and fourth down, even in your own side of the field and things of that nature. Like one of the key ones, if you want to think about it, last year, Gerald Everett had a huge 35-yard catch and run down to the 2 or the 7 or something really close inside the 10. But he called for a sub. He was gassed. He called for a sub. But Staley wanted to run that quick because he loved the play call that they were about to run. The problem is the open guy, the second, third option on that play call ended up being Everett. And his cut dig back out, he didn't have the legs to do the dig. And threw it to a spot because he didn't have his legs. That ended up being it was like a 95, whatever it was, INT return for the Chiefs for a touchdown. So that's where I say, I actually believe very highly in Staley and think he will be a great coach. But I do believe if they don't make the playoffs or they get knocked out in the first round, there's a good chance he's gone after this year. So a lot's going to depend on what happens with them. And a lot of this stuff has also been injury for them, unfortunately, which he can't control. So if that training staff is still there, then he might not have a prayer anyways.
But we all know that the buck always stops in terms of decision making with the head coach. And so, but I will say the wide receiver room is what really stands out to me. That is that is a stacked wide receiver room, and the defense is no joke either. I mean,
Pinky, what would you say about that wide receiver room?
I actually don't think they're as stacked because I don't think you can count on Keenan Allen or Mike Williams to stay healthy.
There it is. And unfortunately, I'm saying it because I'm a huge Mike Williams guy, especially for fantasy. But Pinky, cheers, because we agree. But that's a tough count to play. At least 16 games.
But I will say though, and I'm that's not wrong.
Talent, but you're right, Cam. Talent galore too. And then they added Quentin Johnson. Oh my God.
Well, and I think the thing is if you're talking about a future thing for the Chargers, and you're looking at it in the future, and you're looking at number 1 being Mike Williams, number 2 being Quentin Johnson. Holy crap! You're talking about almost like going up against in basketball terms. You're going up against Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo, two big frame players.
Well, and Gerald Everett's only 26.
Right. And by the way, they have Joshua Palmer as well, who is a pretty decent wide receiver at Tennessee as well.
They pissed off Eckler, so hard to say what they do at the running back position going forward after this year, but they have him at least for this year.
Prayers that he goes to Denver, reunites with Lombardi, but that's another end of the.
No, not at that point. Not at that point.
But again though, they're an interesting team, and I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if if they do finish second. It's just
they're the team I feel like they can make the playoffs. They could not make the playoffs. They're so up and down. Who knows?
It's maybe we talked about this, Caleb, or even Pinky as well. Not saying Justin Herbert is Phillip Rivers, because Herbert is a better quarterback than Phillip Rivers. But there is always a stigma about the Chargers organization. You mentioned
that goes all the way back to Dan Fouts.
But I mean, you mentioned it about the Lions, right? And how the Lions are going to lion earlier.
Absolutely.
Chargers going to Charger, baby.
That's where I got that phrase from, Cam.
Right.
Pinky always saying the Chargers are going to Charger.
Right, exactly. And so the Chargers are always going to Charger in the sense of to the point. Now, granted, to the Broncos' credit, they took care of business and played some really good football in Week 18, and where there really was no excuse for Brandon Staley in that sense of if you wanted to rest your starters, There really was no excuse. You played your starters in that sense, and so on and so forth. But
But they didn't want to be out. Like we've talked about this before.
No.
Bit. I don't think the Broncos played that good. I think the Chargers just didn't want to be out there at all.
I think they played really well against the Chargers in Week 18. I really do, especially Russ and company.
I think when you're playing against a team whose guys are just going through the motions, you're gonna look good. Like I think that's just an inevitability.
Going through the motions and getting injured during a game is not going through the motions to me. Because Mike Williams got hurt in that game, and
that's usually when you get hurt. Though, is you're not going 100. That's usually when injuries occur the most.
And it's also making stupid decisions by playing your starters in a meaningless game is sometimes also how it works too.
I agree. It was a bad move by Staley. That was a dumb move.
But I mean, but the thing is, like, the point is though, is that you were supposed to win those games. You can't lose that game. And so like that at the end of the day, it's like there's always at least one or two games that the Chargers or more will lose. And
I mean, they had that KC game locked up that I referenced just a little bit ago, and they lost it. So they find ways. That there's no doubt.
And there's not much even to mention about the Kansas City Chiefs. I will add, speaking about the wide receiver position, I cannot believe the NFL allowed Justin Ross to sneak his way onto the Kansas City Chiefs roster as an undrafted free agent.
2 years ago. Basically redshirted last year, and the dude's about to ball out, it sounds like.
Yeah. So he's a guy that I mentioned before, even before mainly joined the network. And even Boggins mentioned it actually first on our show, but it's just that is a wide receiver that I would really remember the name of, because it seems like he's going to be possibly a replacement for Juju Smith-Schuster, a guy that they
much better.
Much better. Probably
I compared him favorably to T. Higgins.
As long as he stays healthy.
I mean, came out of Clemson. He's a bigger, kind of skinnier body.
Make ridiculous
he can
catches.
Run the routes. He can make the plays. If you haven't seen the highlight, about a week ago, he burns one of the KC DBs, and on his route, at the top of his route, before he turns to come back and catch the ball, he puts his hands behind his back and wipes him on his towel. And then proceeds to make the catch.
Mid-route.
With the DB just gone, out of picture. I've compared him very favorably to T. Higgins. He's had some crazy injuries. Can he put those all behind him? Because if he does, and let's be honest, if he does and Tony can stay healthy, and then with Kelsey, that offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, it's
definitely Gallup.
What'd you say?
He said big if.
Oh,
for Tony.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay, you can call it a big if, but that's what I said. I said if he can stay healthy, like the weapons they have on that offense are pretty wild.
Yeah. But I mean, yes,
Hear me now, Pinky? Hear me? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. You keep freezing, bro.
Oh, I'm freezing?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing Caleb freeze.
Chiefs are going to be really good. Move on.
Is
all
it
right.
Pinky or is it me? Now I'm all confused.
Well, now we get to the point where we turn Caleb into the pessimistic Broncos fan that he is. Let's have it.
I'll surprise you. I mean, honestly, there's no reason why the Broncos shouldn't be competing for a wild card.
Okay.
At a minimum.
I like where this is going.
Now, I'm still going to be realistic about the situation, Cam. I'm still not sold on Sean Payton as a savior for Russ and what happened last year. I think he's kind of like a Ron Rivera type at a minimum, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean it in you can come and you can make sure the ship is going to stay afloat. You're going to fix all the holes at the very least so that you're competitive. I believe he can do that at the very least. I don't know if he's this kind of savior, though, that a lot of people want to believe he is, in the sense that he's going to make sure that they're at another Super Bowl.
I think the thing is more about stability than anything for the organization. I think it's about, what Sean Payton is going to be bringing, not just in the Russ tenure, but the post Russ tenure. So I think, I think that I agree. I think you are going to be seeing a team that's going to be challenging for a wild card spot, 100%. I think a lot of us will be in agreement on that. The question is just, can they actually achieve that? I don't obviously foresee the 13 wins, the 14 wins, something absurd like that. I will say though, and I will repeat this until the dogs come home, is that I really do think we see a new Russ this year. He's lot.
If you want to say a new Russ in the sense that it's somewhere in between last year and what he was in Seattle,
he is not going to be last year. I am telling you right now, Caleb, he is not going to be last year. And
I said somewhere between what he was last year and what he was in Seattle. He's not somewhere between there.
He is not even going to touch last year.
Russ's game is predicated on movement, and I think he lost a step.
I'm sorry, but no, it's not going to be touching last year. I'm sorry, it's not. Everything that the Broncos are predicated on has been predicated off of the running game. Everything that he had been successful with in Seattle, and also, too, it's going to be predicating about him on the move. So I think that when you look at it from the perspective of what they're going to be doing, they are going to have Russ on the move. Now, he may have lost a step, and I agree with it, because Father Time is going to be is always going to catch up with you, 100%, right? Because
but
that's
Russ
exactly
isn't Drew Brees.
No.
I just don't think those pieces with Peyton and Russ and what Russ is good at or was good at and what Peyton likes to do, I don't think they marry as well as people want to believe them to. I think that's my biggest concern, Cam.
And I think you will be shocked. I think you will be shocked. Because I think that, like, when you look at what they're doing in terms of bringing guys in like Michael Burton, bringing guys in that are Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey, guys that are going to be predicated on running the football and everything that we've said numerous times about getting him on the move. And, obviously he is not Drew Brees, but he is one of the best off-script quarterbacks of the last decade. And the best thing that you can possibly do is get him on the move and have him in advantageous situations, which under Nathaniel Hackett, they never did. Let's be fair.
I mean, we're not arguing that. I still think we saw a guy who lost a step and was calling his own stuff a lot of the time last year.
And so I think, though, that, like, if you continue it, though, and then you look at a defense, you're also talking about, from everything we were hearing today, you're talking about a defense that seems to be leaning on more of the Vic Fangio, Ejiro Evero style, but with the blend of a Vance Joseph blitz-heavy scheme, which is exactly what this defense is absolutely needs as well. But when you can be able to generate pressure from a guy like a Frank Clark, a Randy Gregory, if he can be able to stay healthy, you're hearing really good things out of camp. And again, the key word of all of this is right now. And everything we're predicting is off of right now.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, Cam.
And so
there's a lot of ifs on this team, but if those ifs go down well, you're talking about one of the most talented rosters, pound for pound, if you will, in the NFL. Is Cortland Sutton back to Cortland Sutton? Devontae Williams show up? Samaje Perine? Is Justin Simmons going to be healthy? Can Randy Gregory stay healthy? If all these ifs play true, the talent is all there. So then thinking that that's how you're thinking and you're predicating this on all that talent stays healthy, what's the reason you only have them competing for a wild card?
That's
because of Russ Wilson.
No, not at all.
So then why do you only have them at a wild card?
Because of the top-heavy AFC.
Okay, but I mean, how much weaker is the roster of the Broncos than the Chargers or the Chiefs? If all the ifs play out.
If all the ifs play out, I think the Broncos have a better roster than the Chiefs. But not necessarily the Chargers. I still think the Chargers, but we're also talking about the Chargers.
I'm saying, like, there's no reason they couldn't be competing for this division. So then why are they just give them. I'm kind of getting at, like, you're not really thinking they're going to be winning the division. They are going to have to be fighting for that wild card. What at 10-7?
They'd be fighting for second in the division.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not by any means. I'm not saying they're winning the division because I'm not that kind of crazy guy that's going to be. But I think that, like, in terms of everything that you will see, though, you will see a team that is going to be predicated solely on decision making, lack of turnovers, and like just the overall toughness in terms of being a football team. And I think that,
Right.
And so I think that that's why you will see a very different team in 2023. Do I think it's going to be a playoff team? I honestly cannot tell you right now, but I will firmly tell you that they will be a better football team in 2023.
I think we're on the exact same page as far as the end result. I just think we see how it gets there a little bit differently.
But yeah, so I mean, defensively though, I mean, the defense is. I think the defense may not miss a beat with the loss of Ejiro Evero.
It shouldn't. Vance Joseph is a great defensive coordinator. He's
but I thought it would be. I thought it would lose a step because I thought that there's the possibility we would be seeing Vance Joseph's scheme, solely Vance Joseph's scheme, versus.
I mean, even if we saw solely Vance Joseph's team, he's done. I mean, what he did with where was he last year? The Cardinals.
Yeah.
Right.
That defense was good with a lack of many things went going wrong. That defense was still competitive.
Right, but the other part of this is like you also are going to be seeing Sean Payton implement the type of things that you would love to see in terms of getting the playmakers the ball, which is predicated on easy decisions for Russ. So getting it into space, guys like Jerry Jeudy, Greg Dulcich, Cortland Sutton, who, by the way, it's not talked about a lot right now, but Sutton is having a fantastic camp. And
That's all I'm hearing.
And so if he can be able to return to form, he is your Michael Thomas. Jerry Jeudy can be your chess piece wide receiver you use all across the field. And I think that there is an absolute scenario, and obviously with Tim Patrick injury, it's a big loss. But there's a scenario where Jerry Jeudy leads the team in yardage, and Cortland Sutton is your team leader in touchdowns. I don't know about Greg Dulcich. I think there's a wild card in there that says that he leads the team in touchdowns. But with the Tim Patrick injury, I think it seems like Cortland Sutton will be your team leader in touchdowns versus of the wide receiver room. And Javonte Williams, that's a whole other ball game right now. Javonte Williams, if you were to script a certain scene in a movie, it's like, he was in the Captain America First Avenger, and he's in like the contraption, and he's getting ready to be stabbed with super soldier serum, and he comes out of it, and he's like a whole new running back. I mean, like it's going to be so sweet when we can actually see a healthy Javonte Williams. Now, the 100%.
Bravo, Ray. Bravo.
Yeah, bravo. By the way, that would be the biggest troll of all time, by the way, in that week against the Jets if we can count down the play clock.
We need to do that. We need to do that.
Anyway, sorry to go on that huge diatribe.
Add more fuel to that. The Jets are going to smoke us in Week 5, guys. Let's be honest about situations.
I don't know about smoke.
That's going to be an ugly game for the Broncos, I think.
But I think though.
Look, so here's the deal, then, Cam and Pinky. I think you're kind of feeling the same way. So. We haven't heard much from you, so please jump in after this. It sounds like you're kind of on this Broncos zealot group, for lack of a better way of describing it, where you think Russ is going back to almost MVP form under Sean Payton.
No, I didn't say that.
That's just kind of what it sounds like to an extent because of the. It almost sounds like you're talking about them being better than just a wild card team.
What I heard,
you're just trying to talk yourself out of that.
What I've heard from Cam is saying that Russell Wilson can play winning football.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I heard.
I agree with that, but I'm not thinking it's going to be a 4,200 yard season. I'm looking more at like 35 to 37 almost, with 25 touchdowns and 10 interceptions.
Which isn't a bad year. That is a
It's bad, but I'm saying it's just not. Russ is not going to be the reason we have a really good season.
agree.
He's not going to be the reason that we have a bad season by any means, but he's not going to be the reason they ended up having a good season.
But he's
I think
also
you can easily have 2,000-yard rushers in Judy and Sutton,
okay.
receivers in Judy and Sutton. You could have a 1,000-yard rusher and an 800-yard, 700-yard rusher in P. Ryan and Williams, depending on how long it takes Williams to get going. That could be flip-flop one way or the other. I agree Dolchitz is a wild card. I just don't see Russ being that playmaker that we once saw enough to have that offense rolling. That's the reason I see them fighting for a wild card, because they're a really solid team, but it's more because their defense that they're winning rather than their offense scoring and kind of carrying the load, if that makes sense.
Go ahead, Pinky.
I was going to say, I mean, that's what Cam said, though. He said they'd be fighting for a wild card. He's not crazy enough to say they're going to win the division.
No, I get that, but I'm just trying to – it sounds like Cam's predicting like 42 to 4,300 yard season from Russ with like 30 to 35 touchdowns. That's kind of what it sounds like he's saying Russ is going to put up.
I think that is the high ceiling for it within this offense for sure.
Okay.
Because I think if you are talking about a team that is going to go above and beyond the wild card threshold and compete for further, then Russ will have to be not the vintage Russ that won him the MVP, but obviously a very solid Russell Wilson quarterback that we saw, which was the decision making, the turnover reduction, less than 10 interceptions, fumbling the football, the decision making that is true, getting the playmakers the ball, and so I think there is an absolute high ceiling to where he can get to maybe not necessarily the 35 touchdowns, but I think that he can get to say 30, 31, 32.
That's fair. So we're just seeing his ceiling differently, but linking roughly the same outcome. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. You haven't said much.
Well, I've got your negativity. I've got
than...
Cam's positivity. So
being negative, I thought I was pretty.
I was actually surprised he had him for a wild card spot, so we at least got that going for it.
I'm going in their favor. One, I do think the roster is crazy talented. We have better coaching, so those two things alone are huge. And then the third thing is we get to play one of the easiest schedules in the league.
My positivity comes just basically from we lost like 9 games by 1 score last season. If half of those turn around, we're right there fighting for a wild card. Sure. I think with better coaching, I think we're going to be right there. I don't. Based on what's going on right now, the Chiefs are probably still going to win the division.
There's no
Chiefs
problem.
are really good. They have the best quarterback.
To not pick them would be foolish.
And again, it could be just hate against the Chiefs. I'm trying to enjoy just watching them play, but they get a lot of calls right now. They are the face of the NFL. Mahomes is the number one guy. He's the face of the NFL. The NFL is going to make sure that he's where he needs to be. So, there's nobody's going to beat the Chiefs right now in the division.
The important thing also to understand, Caleb, is, and this goes to what Ray sort of was asking to a certain extent. So when Teddy Bridgewater had the really good year that he had with the New Orleans Saints for 5 games before he got injured, he was 5-0, 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now, the thing is, and this is important to remember, is that Sean Payton has always, now he's had some losing seasons certainly in there, but he's a very successful winning coach. And one of the things that he's clearly shown in his career is that he can win in the National Football League with less than stellar quarterback play.
He can, but what you guys, I feel like, are giving Russ too much credit on maybe is the fact that, say what you want about Teddy Two Gloves, his game is exactly what Sean Payton wants to call an offense.
True, but
typical Drew Brees, basically. He's not as good, but that's what he does best. That's
right.
not what Russ does best.
But I will say, though, he's also shown to be an offensive genius in the way that he can be able to mold the potential offense
He's
around
not
a
winning
firm.
football games out of Taysom Hill. I don't know many coaches that could do that.
And
Again, what I'm trying to get at, and I guess what it's going to continuously come back to for me is I believe Russ lost the step. And if that were true, and it goes down that way, what Russ does best is not going to be necessarily something they can do anymore in the NFL because of things like the speed that's continuously on the outside, especially in that division. And if you're trying to move him around, that's going to cost you more than it's going to help you because he can't do that anymore. That's what I believe.
And I will say, I think it's now I do think he's fallen off from the Seattle years just a little bit. But that said, I don't think to fall that much. I'm actually being serious about this. Like to fall that much with Nathaniel Hackett, who we very clearly saw was way in over his head, and then you insert an interim head coach in there with Jerry Rosberg, and immediately you see Russ play at the highest of his level and almost beating the Kansas City Chiefs.
Pump the brakes a little bit. It's not like he was playing his best football ever. He was just playing better than what the rest of the season looked like.
I didn't say that.
Bro, he had like 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Chiefs. Like it
again,
happened.
Against what could possibly be a Chiefs team that necessarily wasn't showing up because
they were up 27-0. He still did it.
Call them, Pinky. What do you call them? What do you call those when that happens?
Just bad moments of.
He wants to say it's empty stats.
Call them empty stats. That's what you would say about any other team or quarterback in the league if that happened. You know you would. So, if the Chiefs are playing a non-pressure cover zone defense, yeah, Russ should be picking you apart when you're not really bringing pressure and playing all these other ways. Like, that's what you would say about anybody else. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to be realistic about the situations and what I saw.
You're always negative, so let's just move on to the AFC North.
AFC North.
Did I not say that?
I might have heard NFC. Yeah, I might have heard that too.
AFC North. Kind of interesting division.
Super interesting division.
I mean, Steelers, I think Pickett hit his ceiling. I don't think he can get much better, in my opinion.
I do, and this is why. Those weapons are going to be even better this year, and they're going to protect him better. I think he can sling the ball around enough to get close to 4,000 yards, honestly, with the weapons on that offense. Deontay Johnson, Freiermuth, George Pickens, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. The offensive line is going to be a little bit better. I think now I'm not saying he's necessarily a guy that'll lead you to the Super Bowl, but I could see him being a Kirk Cousins incarnate.
That's a pretty decent comparison. But I think like the Washington Commanders is a lot of the reasons why for Pittsburgh can they get it. Now the one thing that's different for Pittsburgh and Washington is you have a pretty steady coach with Mike Tomlin.
Right.
That has very clearly, shown that they can be able to win despite stellar quarterback play. Sound familiar? But I think that the thing with Kenny Pickett now, I will say I was quietly, well, maybe not quietly, but I was impressed with the quarterback class that they Pickett, the Malik Willis, who's been shafted in Tennessee, by the way. Malik Willis. Yeah. Matt Corral being another one.
He's never going to get a shot. Matt Corral is nothing.
But I mean, and I liked Sam Howell, but I didn't love Sam Howell. But that said, there are very nice similarities with Washington and Pittsburgh in the sense of, maybe not necessarily the defense, because Washington's defense is better than Pittsburgh's, but the
really?
I wouldn't.
Are you talking about Mika Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt?
If TJ can stay healthy.
We're just talking talent for talent. I would be taking Pittsburgh's defense.
I think Pittsburgh has more on the back end than Washington.
I mean, with Sweat
Washington's
and Young
front four
on
is
that
the best,
D-line,
one of the best in the league.
No, Forbes is not one of the best corners in the league, but he's a good corner.
I like Pittsburgh's defense, actually. I mean, they were middle of
No,
the road last year with
I like it.
Below average offense. So
I like it though. I'm not trying to. I like it. I'm trying to I think that the one thing that sets me apart from a collective part.
Similarities, if that's where you're going, just kind of the idea of what the two sides of the ball are for that team between Washington and Pittsburgh. I can understand where you're coming from.
Right, but what I'm trying to say though is like from a defensive line and like front seven point of view, I like Washington's way better than Pittsburgh's. TJ Watt is a much better player on that front seven than than really any player on that defensive front for Washington, right? Because he's a defensive player of the year. But it's just like as a collective unit, I like Washington's front seven just a little bit better.
So most interesting storyline, Pinky, you first, of the AFC North. What are you most interested in seeing what happens?
I mean, my biggest thing is can Monken help Lamar get to the next level as a passer? Because if he does, they're going to be really, really dangerous.
Best in the division if they do that. Cincinnati, if that's what you see, if Monken really does that with Lamar,
they're gonna battle Cincy if that happens.
What do you need to see from Lamar Jackson this year to no longer call him a running quarterback?
I mean, he's got to throw
legit. Like you and I go back and forth on this, but I think there's potential here. I think it's a legitimate question given what they're saying they're going to do.
I mean, he's going to throw for over 4,000 yards. He hasn't done that yet. He has thrown for over 30 touchdowns. He did hit that threshold. But
credit, you have agreed to an extent that it's not all Lamar, and it's the way they set up that offense and Greg Roman's previous play calling. So unlike some of the other quarterbacks that you call strictly running, you have given Lamar, I'd say, a little bit more leeway or grace when it comes to just that specific title.
I mean, I think he could throw the ball. I mean, they haven't put any weapons around him. I'm not completely sold that he has the weapons around him that he needs right now.
It's a big question mark.
For the moment.
That's actually I have two storylines that are right at the top of my list, and one of them just happened within the last week. And that's Joe Burrow and that calf strain. I've heard a lot of news and stories that particular injury can take a solid 8 weeks to heal. If you come back before then, you could be really pressing your luck. I've also heard that injury, there's rumors that it's very, very similar to what Kevin Durant had. And if you come back from it too early, we saw what happened to Kevin Durant. And if Joe Burrow did that, boy, Cincy would be screwed.
Mm-hmm.
My other storyline that I'm just as equally interested in is kind of what Pinky alluded to, and it's not as much as Lamar Jackson because I have complete faith in him. It's, are these weapons finally legit? Is OBJ going to stay healthy for a season and get back to form? Is Zay Flowers really that dude? Can Bateman get on the field and be like a 1A, 1 type like he was drafted as possibly? There's Mark Andrews, J.K. Dobbins. Can he stay healthy? He could be one of the best running backs in the league. There's a lot of ifs within those weapons on Baltimore. But if they can go wild and stay healthy, I think you're looking at the best team in the AFC potentially.
So the
those two storylines are my two neck and neck right now.
To go a bit on Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken, I'm fascinated by it. Because if you've watched anything about Georgia, with anything that they've been able to do, I would be really curious to see what that's going to be doing for Lamar Jackson. And especially with what that was able to give Stetson Bennett. Because Stetson Bennett, another quarterback that was very slept on in this draft, and I think but he has athleticism and athleticism that Monken used. And I think that when you put it within what Lamar Jackson has, which is that running athleticism and his passing ability, I think is probably you're going to see possibly a much higher ceiling of what Georgia was able to run with just much better quarterback play. And so I think my thing isn't so much year one, because I think year one you'll see growing pains. I think you'll see some growing pains.
Let's keep in mind, Lamar ran a pro-style offense coming out of Louisville. That's why I'm always so surprised that people are like, he can't throw the ball. He's a running quarterback. Like, I think that's why I'm so amazed that Greg Roman pigeonholed him so drastically. It's always blown my mind.
Well, but so my thing isn't so much year one. It's what will year two look like. So my thing isn't so much what will year one look, because again, there's gonna be growing pains. But I just think that, like, as far as but the thing is like, this is to go off of what you guys just mentioned, though. The thing that's sneaky about Baltimore, though, you guys say about the wide receiving room or even the playmakers around Lamar. I will say that I feel confident, more confident in Baltimore's playmakers this go around than I do in many of the years prior. For one, they were able to go out and get Odell Beckham Jr., who, when healthy, he is a very solid receiver. That is a receiver that I think can really help out Lamar Jackson in the passing game. Zay Flowers is a wide receiver that I think very, very easily could have been argued as wide receiver one, just in terms of the way he was in and out of his breaks. You know, he was small, but he was explosive. I mean, right on par with almost Jackson Smith and Jigba in a way. And I think that Zay Flowers is very sneaky in that regard. And so I
had a good camp by all accounts.
And I think that the way that they are as a wide receiving unit, I wouldn't be surprised if they find some creative ways to get Zay Flowers involved. I wouldn't be surprised about this.
Final thought, Nick Chubb leads the league in rushing this year.
So
we're talking about the AFC North. Nick Chubb, I think they finally use him as more of a 3-down back. Maybe not consistently, but I believe that's how they use him this year. I believe he leads the league in rushing this year, and I'm on the fence, but I'm leaning towards and touchdowns.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not? Sure.
Put it on the list, Pinky. Let's just mark that one down and see what happens.
I'll put it on the list.
It's a little bit too early for me.
Cheers to the fact we just agreed on that, because I was not ready for you to go that route. I like it. Cheers, sir.
If anybody's interested, I know we're going way long, and but I just thought people would know, like, as far as teasing the future, me and Brandon talked about doing our AFC NFC preview. So we're going to do that the week of the regular season. So we're going to do it the week of the regular season.
So that'd be like the Wednesday, September 6th.
No, the Wednesday before. Well, yeah, the Wednesday before the Chiefs kickoff, right? So
September
Thursday.
6th.
Yeah,
we love you, Cody. We're here to keep
September
you awake during
7th.
long shifts, buddy.
September 7th is the start. That's my daughter's birthday. That's why I know I have that that date down.
Good. Make sure you always remember that.
I already told her, like, hey, honey, you already got your birthday present, but we're going to hang out and watch the football game.
On the same note, that means the week before that, Pinky and I are doing our schedule release. So you'll get the schedule release from us the week before, and then your breakdown of both divisions the week after.
But so the thing is, we're not just talking divisions. So people really do need to tune into, obviously not just Mainly in general, because I love Mainly, but
Mainly's a good show.
But that podcast, we don't just do division winners, people. We'll do award predictions. We'll do who wins head coaching, who wins.
This is going to be fun, because basically the week before that is what we're doing. To an extent. So that's going to be fun to see how the two shows compare.
Ray, I will say
that's a good question.
I think it's in the works in terms of everything that's going to be happening. And actually, for anybody that is not, actually, this is a nice little tie and nice little plug in. But anybody that doesn't know, but the 5280 podcast crew is going to be doing a second show on, I should say, the PSF app, which is Pro Sports Fans. The neighborhood, at least from everything that I've been hearing, is moving along with that. Now, I don't know if the neighborhood, will be doing some of those preseason games, Ray. So Mike would probably be the best person for that. And I just can't wait for the PSF fan crew to embrace our lovely Bill on that neighborhood show. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so and then obviously we'll be doing a separate show Wednesdays. Wednesdays are going to be a really long day for me, by the way. And then Wednesday, I think it's same time, which will be like 6:00 on the PSF app. We will be doing a show called Elevation Orange. Fantastic name. I wonder why you said that, Ray. I wonder why you said that, Ray. But yeah, so but basically 6:00 on the PSF app is when we'll be doing the Elevation Orange show, which is, I'd imagine, because it's that show, it's basically, I would imagine, almost a carbon copy of what the 5280 podcast is, because it's considering it's me, Gage, Glenn, and the guy with gray all over his beard, Mike.
I'm gonna have to pod crush that one of these days.
Right.
Really ruffle some feathers
for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you guys want to pod crash, you guys are more than welcome to pod crash mainly anytime. In fact, we are.
Tim, I want to so bad. It's just and we have talked about this before with me having the two little ones. It's like right in the middle of bath time and bedtime routine, and so it's hit and miss. If I don't want to pod crash for all of like 30 seconds and then bounce.
Well, and I was going to say, if anybody is a big Lance Sanderson fan, then the Mainly Broncos podcast for tomorrow is going to be one for you, because Lance Sanderson is on the podcast. He obviously does the Dove Valley Deep Diver show with Eric Trickle on Mile High Huddle.
Yes.
So he will be on our show. He's been on Mainly before. So it'll be nice to have him.
What time is that?
Same time as your guys' show, but just tomorrow on 7:30. Same time, same bat channel, if you will, for MHRT.
I might crash that. Lance is awesome.
Yeah.
Lance is awesome.
Do it, Pinky. Do it. I'll see about it. But again, I get a pass for tonight, specifically tonight, to come on and make things happen a little earlier. So I'm not going to promise anything.
That's all right. Appreciate you, Ray.
Cam's saying, if you're out there, yeah, definitely check that out. Pinky, I believe we have one more division to give some thoughts on.
I'm just going to make two statements.
Let me hear 'em.
If
Let me
Joe
hear 'em,
Burrow
buddy.
is healthy, the Bengals win the North. Period.
It doesn't matter. If Joe Burrow's healthy, they're winning. It doesn't matter what happens with Lamar and Baltimore. And
if Joe Burrow's healthy, the Bengals win the North.
All right, I like it.
I am at least curious about the Browns and Deshaun. And they got a better defensive coordinator. They got Jim Schwartz now as their defensive coordinator. I think they should be better. Again, my son's a Browns fan, so I probably pay attention to the Browns more than most. But I don't think they're going to be that great. I just don't.
No, they won't. DCR is going to be coming for Watson by week 17. And no, I'm kidding. I'm joking. Yeah, no, the Browns, the only thing good about the Browns will be Cedric Tillman. I think the wide receiver that they got there.
Amari Cooper's going to.
I still like David. I still like David Bell too.
David Bell, decent wide
Amari's
receiver
going for
from
like
Purdue.
1,310. Amari's going to have a great year.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So,
I think Deshaun's returning to form a little bit, and Amari's still that dude. I fully believe that.
Well, but I mean, like the Browns will be able to compete, put some yardage and, stat pat, however you want to look at that.
Empty stats, baby, a beautiful thing, Pinky, right?
Fantasy, baby.
yeah.
Give me those empty stats.
So, but yeah, the Browns
division, my guy, because
it's gonna suck.
You put it on the back end for a reason, and I am interested, and I have some ideas myself that you've heard before, probably, but I'll let the masses hear it as well.
All right. Last division, obviously, which I think is probably the most interesting division in all of football. The AFC East.
We've touched on this before with Cam, actually, and he almost walked off the last time we said this, but I think we both believe that the Jets are possibly the best team in that division right now.
I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You believe it's a possibility.
I don't. I think the Dolphins might be the best division.
I think no matter – I'll give you that. I'm good with that too. I think no matter how you slice it, though, I think Pinky and I both agree the Bills are probably the third best team in this division.
Say psych.
Pinky, just give it a thought. Let your heart tell you where you want to go.
Here's my issue with the Bills. I don't think their roster is as good as the Jets or the Dolphins as a roster. I do think Josh Allen can be a better quarterback than anybody in the division.
I mean, all things considered, if everybody stays healthy, Tua was really the best quarterback in the league up until he got his first concussion.
The most accurate quarterback in the league, for sure.
Yards, completion percentage, QBR.
Accurate. He's accurate as hell.
I don't give a shit what you want to call it. If the man was leading the league in all the major statistical categories, that's the best quarterback in the league. Like, say what you want, but I mean that's kind of the definition of being the best, isn't it?
I'll say
he has better talent because Burrow has Higgins and Chase. Hurts has Devontae Smith and Brown. Like we've been over this before. Like,
hey, if 3 teams in the AFC make the playoffs, AFC East, I would not be surprised.
I agree with that.
For sure. However you want to rank them, I mean, everybody's going to have their bias.
Okay, fine. Let's make one statement that if we don't agree on this, I'm probably just going to say I'm done for the night. The Patriots are finishing at the bottom.
Sure. Yes.
All right.
The only hope that the Patriots have right now
is starting Bailey Zappi.
They still have Bill Belichick, who's one of the best defensive coaches. I think Bill O'Brien's a good offensive coordinator. I do. So I do think he can get some good stuff out of Mac Jones. I still don't think they have any playmakers. Like I just don't.
They have Ramondre Stevenson, who's actually pretty good. But,
he is pretty good.
But I mean, yeah.
Ramondre is a great running back.
I
think he's going to blow up this year.
Ray, bro, you're missing out, man. I will say, Mike McDaniel's offense, it's a Shanahan offense, bro. You are missing out. You will love watching that offense.
I mean, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, but even further than that, Ray, like I'm confused. Like, as a Broncos fan, what could possibly drive you to not wanting to watch a super talented team? It's not like this is the Raiders or the Chiefs or the Chargers. Like, as a hardcore Broncos fan, I think maybe if you said it about one of those teams, I could understand. But like the Dolphins, what brings you to say such a statement?
Yeah, I have Bills winning. I have Bills winning the division, but
is it just because like they've done it and the other two haven't, so you're going with what you've seen?
Yes.
Or do you truly believe they're the better team?
But I also think that they are a pretty loaded team. But as we all know, winning the division doesn't mean you advance in the playoffs. But I think the thing is, like, I think that it is definitely close as far as the talent pool. Now, I will say this. I may get a lot of heat from this from Broncos fans or even AFC West fans. The AFC West division is better than it is the AFC West, in my opinion.
You mean the AFC East is better?
The AFC East is better than the AFC West.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that shouldn't even be a discussion.
You need to be surprised. The amount of people I have on my timeline, you'd be surprised. See, we just lost two. We just lost two people viewing the show already. See, told you.
Fine.
See,
let it
Your
be.
fault,
Like,
Cam. Your fault.
see,
that's a completely commonsensical statement.
I'm just saying.
Oh my gosh.
But I also think if there is a division that could also see three teams make the playoffs, and not just three teams make the playoffs, but win 10 games, it's the AFC East. I can also see with the AFC West, but I think if I was more confident, I would say I'm more confident in the AFC West having three teams with 10 wins than the AFC West with three teams with 10 wins.
Right.
I would put the AFC North actually above the AFC West.
No.
I wouldn't, just for the sake of, like, I think that
I would give a slight edge to Cleveland only over the Broncos as that third team, only because Deshaun Watson, I think, has a higher upside than Russell Wilson right now, and talent is equal.
But Miami, I will say this right now, Miami is the sneaky team. If I was to say if there is a sneaky team, that could make some noise in the playoffs from the AFC, not counting, say, like Jacksonville or whatever, or as far as another choice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think the Dolphins are sneaky. I think it just depends on whether or not Tua plays a whole season.
No, but I say sneaky in terms of if they hit it right. I'm saying as far as hitting it right and from the playoffs and to go far, I wouldn't be surprised if Miami is one of those teams. And the reason why I say that is because the one move, and look, I know we chopped up Vic Fangio, and I think Pinky was listening to our show, earlier, but like, I know we kind of chopped up some of the stuff in terms of Vic Fangio and everything, but he is still a fantastic defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And the best move that was made that no one talked about enough was Vic Fangio being hired by the Miami Dolphins. And I think that that addition alone paired with Mike McDaniel is something that I think will keep a lot of teams up at night because of the fact.
I think, though, even before that hire, though, I think last year, if Tua doesn't get hurt, you could easily say they win the Super Bowl last year.
I don't know.
They just continued to improve week after week, and that offense just kept rolling.
I don't know
defense was solid.
I don't know about easy, but the one thing that does put pause in it is sadly where is Tua?
And that's the kicker. One more concussion, there's a good chance his career is over.
Right. Because I still get nightmares. Not really, but I still get scared every once in a while when I see, obviously, because there was the Damar Hamlin situation, but I think people forget about how scary the Tua situation was, where he got back onto the field and then he got tackled and he does the little contortion thing onto the field. That scared the crap out of me about as much as the Damar Hamlin situation. So I think that, and two, I just don't know, because I need to see proof in the pudding. I need to see how well the training staff and the health staff go forward with Tua on a regular basis in this year after everything that we had seen. And so, but that said, he is like the perfect orchestrator. He is the perfect conductor of the offense, of what Mike McDaniel was. And I think that now Herbert was obviously the best decision, right? For what the Chargers, were probably looking for. And I also think if you even flipped it, and this is no slight to Tua, really, this is no slight to Tua. But I think you are talking about a much different situation if you put Herbert with the Dolphins than you would Tua with the Chargers in, just a little bit. Because I think if you put Herbert with, I'm talking about right now. So like if you put Mike McDaniel with Justin Herbert, I mean,
but Tua is the perfect quarterback for what McDaniel wants to run.
I agree.
Like the perfect quarterback.
I agree.
So I don't know that Justin Herbert. I can kind of understand what you're saying, but I've told Pinky before, as long as the coach is smart enough to call the right plays, Tua is so deadly accurate and he's so proficient in his reads that he'll just pick you apart consistently.
Yeah, and I think that I think the thing that people have a tendency to forget is that also Tua has gotten better every single year. And I think that, so I'm.
And let's remember, until Joe Burrow blew up out of nowhere, he was the definitive number one pick.
Yeah.
It's not like this guy was picked in like the 5th round and he's kind of just making his way. No.
Agree.
This dude came in as a highly qualified, skilled quarterback that people were drooling over for a minute.
And I actually think that to a lot of the ways that I compare Bryce Young a little bit to him in a certain way, I actually see some of the same things with Russ, a young Russ, a little bit, Russ and a Steve Young almost to a Tua, with the way I'm just saying, I think his mobility is underrated. That's all I'm saying. I think his mobility is underrated.
Okay, I would give you to his mobility being underrated. I see him more as a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning type, where he's just really good at moving within the pocket more than its mobility.
And his
but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
He's more mobile than both of them. But that said, Tua.
True, absolutely.
But Tua is one of those guys that he is truly the true orchestrator of the perfect system, and you just hope that he can be healthy and lead the team to where it needs to go. Because I do really like the prospects of, and that's one of the reasons why I say what I say in terms of Miami being the team that's going to scare teams in terms of in the playoffs. Because I think that if you hit it just right, as far as with Miami, you got Vic Fangio you're going to be dealing with a pass rush of Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb that are coming. I mean, they're coming. And then you have a front seven that's underrated, a secondary that is no joke either with Javon Holland.
Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey when he comes back.
Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. I don't know how the injury of Ramsey is going to affect it.
Meniscus usually isn't a big deal as long as you allow it to heal properly, but it is a question mark for sure.
But I mean, the thing is like he wasn't there previously, and so it's something that I'm sure Fangio had found a way to work with even before Ramsey even got there.
For sure. I will say this about Buffalo. If they finally find a run game, a consistent run game, which I believe James Cook could be to an extent, and you'll have to, backfill a little bit because I think James Cook is more of a Tony Pollard type than he is a Najee Harris or whatever, a Ramondre Stevenson where he can carry all 3 downs. But if they can find a consistent run game, I could very strongly consider moving the Bills into the second best team in that division. But because they rely so heavily on Josh Allen at all times, I think Aaron Rodgers returns to MVP form, and if Tua stays healthy, it's hard to see the Bills being better than either of those teams.
And that's one of the reasons why I actually love Buffalo. But a lot of the ways that I think Tampa was orchestrated under Brady, or even Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay before Aaron Jones, one of the things that you always saw was a inconsistency or lack of a running game. And I think for Buffalo, they are a fantastic team. But if you're nitpicking what their greatest weakness is, it's that running back. And I think it's one of the reasons why, even though they're brothers, I would not count out the Buffalo Bills for Dalvin Cook. I am dead serious on that.
Yeah, I actually believe Dalvin doesn't want to go there at all because he doesn't want to take away from his brother's shine.
Right.
I believe that with all my heart. So there's no way that happens.
That's fine. But I also wouldn't rule it out. And if that does happen, boy, you're talking about you are talking about a really good setup for take the brother part of it out of it. But you're talking about
it's fire and lightning kind of thing. Thunder and lightning, I mean. But yeah, for sure. For sure. Pinky, anything else on the AFC East, my dude?
I mean, to me, they're the most interesting division in all of football. All of football. So
I don't know. I feel like every single year, and we didn't even touch on this team, but even in the NFC East, I'm very curious about the Giants. I am very curious about the Giants.
I'm with you, Cam.
Because
I just kind of let that go, and I'll talk about it on the schedule release and all of that stuff. But yes, I'm very much with you on that. Final thoughts, Cam?
None really. Just thank you guys so much for having me. I kind of created the term, but pod crash, your guys' show. But so I enjoy hopping on. This is actually the only show I do it to. Obviously, I've thought about I've thought about doing it to my buddy, Nick Manning and JT Matthews and John Kay every once in a while because I love Orange and Brew as well. So I've thought about doing that, but obviously it's Thursdays and it's 2:30 and I'm working. It's like the end hours, and so I'm like, but I'm working from home, so there's like that window of opportunity to, do I do it, but do I piss off my boss in the process, kind of deal. Sure. But anyway, thank you guys so much. It's always a pleasure. Ray, you are the man, really, dude. Like, thank you so much. You're a joy to have in the comment section. Cody, thank you so much, man. Everybody that's commented, man, it's great. Clayton obviously is a superstar.
Absolutely.
So I put it in to you guys, like, again, thank you for having me hop on, and and I promise, like, I'm sure you guys can at least peel it back for me, but there is definitely an objective side to me. So I'm definitely have the optimism, but I think the one thing, as you guys can tell with the Broncos, is like I'm optimistic, but there's also the objectivity to it where it's like, if they disappoint you again, am I really going to be that disappointed because of what we've seen the last 6 years? So 100%.
Pinky, where you at, my guy?
Bro, I just like having fun, man. Cam, thanks for joining, bro. You're welcome to crash. It's all good.
Crash, like sleep over?
I might crash your show. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll just make a good routine out of all of this.
I'll be a little more sober, probably. But.
Hold on. John is in the building? Dang it. I should never have said I'm going to crash Orange Brew now. Dang it.
Oh, boy.
Bawana Beast. Bawana Beast.
We're going to be talking football heavy. We told you that was coming. It's only going to get more so in depth with everything.
We have our
next week
show
is our fantasy. Next week we're doing, for those that aren't familiar, highly recommend checking it out because it's what's called a Vampire League. So it's a completely different setup than anything you might be familiar with. Highly recommend checking it out because it's a super cool idea. We've been running it. This will be our 4th year, I believe. But it's awesome. So check it out. I promise you, it'll be entertaining and it'll be something you haven't probably played in before. And then the week after that, we'll have our schedule release. We'll get pretty in depth with where we are at with that. And then the week after that is the week that the season starts, and we'll start just diving into everything that's current. So stick with us. We got 3 weeks of really entertaining stuff, I believe, coming up. Cam, as always, thank you for joining us. And you guys know it, you've heard it, but it will never stop. Do not ever take those moments for granted with those loved ones, your inner circle, family, friends, whatever you consider them to be. Cherish those moments and take advantage of them as often as you can. We love all the support. We appreciate you guys. We're out.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.